Chapter 569, Battle Court Strikes. Invincible. When Guan was immersed in his reincarnation memories, spiritual energy from the Taoist field of the beginningless surged towards him, startling the disciples within. Shenzhen was the first to be awakened. She turned her head to look at Guan, who was meditating with his eyes closed, her eyes brimming with curiosity. An Xian arrived first, followed by Lv Xian, Chen Chuan, Celestial Demon Child, and others. Gradually, everyone gathered in the courtyard within the span of 5 breaths. When they realized the extraordinary phenomenon of the spiritual energy in the Taoist field originated from Guan, they all breathed a sigh of relief. What is Master doing? It looks like he's seeking enlightenment. The realm of our Master is so high, yet he can still experience sudden enlightenment. Perhaps his talent is greater than we thought. Nonsense, it's clear that our Master is a genius. How else could he have reached his current realm? Stop guessing and sit down quickly. Let's profoundly sense the Master's Tao. Everyone discussed in hushed tones, afraid of disturbing Guan. After being reminded by the blood prison great saint, everyone sat down to earnestly contemplate. The Taoist field of the beginningless fell into silence. The mountains and forests were beautiful. The sunlight was gentle. Everything seemed so perfect. An hour later, Wuxia world. Sight Guan opened his eyes and saw that everyone was meditating within the courtyard. His expression didn't change. He just turned his gaze toward Shenzhen. Such a heavy obsession. Guan lamented inwardly. He had figured out the relationship between Shenzhen and Fairy Yaoxian. In fact, there was no actual relationship between the two. It was just that the Emperor of Eternal Life transferred Fairy Yaoxian's karma onto Shenzhen, hoping that the original self, namely Guan, could find Fairy Yaoxian through Shenzhen and rescue her. Fairy Yaoxian is a Taoist emperor with extraordinary talent. Even part of karma could change Shenzhen's destiny. Shenzhen was not initially chosen by the Emperor of Eternal Life, but was granted karma by him after meeting Guan. This was the act of the Emperor of Eternal Life after merging with the Great Cause and Effect Steel. He couldn't deduce where his original self was, so he could only utilize the power of the Great Cause and Effect Steel. He chose to self-destruct, also to make better use of the power of the Great Cause and Effect Steel. In the last moment before his will dispersed, he finally locked onto the celestial spirit great world of the future. He chose Shenzhen because among the people Guan cared about, only Shenzhen had no one in her heart but Guan. The Emperor of Eternal Life believed that only such a relationship could compel Guan to go and save Fairy Yaoxian. Not only that, the Emperor of Eternal Life also left a mark within the Great Cause and Effect Steel as a way of repaying the original self in advance. Through this matter, Guan suddenly realized that Shenzhen's affection for him was indeed different. Although she said nothing, she had abandoned everything to follow him. When Shenzhen chose him, she did not know his true cultivation level. She simply did so because their aspirations and intentions concurred. Guan looked at Shenzhen, and he too felt relieved. Shenzhen was not a replacement for anyone. She was still her own person, which was quite all right. As for the karma of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan would shoulder it. After all, he was the Emperor of Eternal Life. They were essentially the same person. One day, he would help the Emperor of Eternal Life find Fairy Yaoxian. With a thought, Guan's pupils transformed into a purplish gold hue, with flames faintly surging within. The Immortal Emperor's Eye. After inheriting the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan suddenly mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It's worth noting that his Immortal Emperor's Eye had no association with the Stealing Heaven Emperor, which was another of the Emperor of Eternal Life's methods. The Emperor of Eternal Life had obliterated Stealing Heaven Emperor's Immortal Emperor's Eye within the Great Cause and Effect Steel. The reason Guan could condense his own Immortal Emperor's Eye was because it was a skill that was cultivated, akin to a variation of divine powers. Only it affected the bloodline and soul. The Emperor of Eternal Life had mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye for hundreds of millions of years, and had grasped its essence. This allowed Guan to directly cultivate the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It was a new Immortal Emperor's Eye without any karma. The Immortal Emperor's Eye was a great Tao creation, extremely difficult to cultivate, and different people could possess different mysteries. Now Guan's mana was converging towards the immortal Emperor's Eye, which would give rise to immortal Emperor's Eye divine power unique to him. Guan spread out his Tao intent, immersing the others in the process of enlightenment, to prevent them from seeing the immortal Emperor's Eye. The night sky was clear with the moon shining brightly and few stars. Inside the pagoda of Third Medicine Valley, which once belonged to Guan, Longqing and Yitsong sat opposite each other. They had been talking for several days, with Yitsong speaking and Longqing listening. After Yitsong had recounted his experiences of 9,000 years, he inhaled deeply and said, "Master, I've truly recognized my mistakes. I'm willing to accept punishment. Please discipline me according to the sect's rules." He had already killed Cui Xianlin, avenging his sister, and his vengeance was thus settled, and next he needed to take responsibility for his own mistakes. When he forced his way into Supreme Sect, although he did not create a massacre, he caused many people to get hurt, bringing immeasurable losses to Supreme Sect. Longqing looked at Yitsong and asked, "If your teacher asked you to take on the responsibility of the Supreme Sect, would you be willing?" "What responsibility?" Yitsong asked in confusion. Longqing answered, "The responsibility of the sect leader." At these words, Yitsong suddenly stood up, astonished. "How can I be the sect leader? Besides, isn't Brother Longtung the best candidate?" As he spoke these words, the image of Guan surfaced in his mind again. He wasn't clear on what he was thinking, only feeling that the matter was ridiculous. Longqing's gaze remained calm as he said, "You have finished recounting your past experiences. Now it is time for your teacher to talk about his own past." Yitsong's brows furrowed, and he could only suppress the confusion in his heart before sitting down. Longqing began to talk about the past of the Long clan, and their deep-seated grievances and enmities with the battle court. Hearing that his master was from outer heaven, Yitsong was shocked but did not interrupt with questions and listened attentively. As time went on, Yitsong's expression continuously changed, and by the end, his mood had turned somber. He had not at all expected that his master carried so many burdens. Compared to his master, his own suffering was insignificant. Heaven-supporting ancestor flew out from within Yitsong, looking at Longqing with a complex expression. Seeing heaven-supporting ancestor appear, Longqing paid no heed, and continued speaking about the burden of karma he carried. After a long while, Longqing finished recounting the past and looked at Yitsong saying, "I am destined to die, but I do not wish my progeny to walk the same old path. I hope they stay away from Supreme Sect, away from the karma of the Long clan. My views diverge from those of the Grand Elder, so I wish to support you in becoming the next sect leader. Your talent is strong enough to become the strongest in Supreme Sect's future. But Kanger, your temperament still needs tempering. It's fine to be sharp, but in all things leave some leeway, and do not be too extreme." His tone was still calm, revealing no emotion. Yitsong couldn't help but say, "Master, why must you bear such heavy karma? The battle court hasn't come yet, have they? Perhaps the battle court has already been annihilated, or maybe they can't even find the celestial spirit great world. It's impossible. The strength of the battle court is beyond your imagination. I had also heard of the Long clan before. I didn't expect that the Long clan still had surviving bloodlines. The battle court will certainly not let the Long clan off the hook." Heaven-supporting ancestor spoke with a hint of unease in his voice. Yitsong turned to heaven-supporting ancestor and asked with a frown, "Is the battle court truly unbeatable?" Heaven-supporting ancestor sighed, "Truly unbeatable?" Yitsong, unconvinced, asked, "What if my ancestor made a move? Could the battle court withstand it?" Heaven-supporting ancestor was caught off guard by the thought of Guan, which made him shudder, but he still said, "That is the karma of the Long clan. Your ancestor doesn't need to get involved. Besides, the might of the battle court is great, and you've never been to the great world beyond. You have no idea how terrifying the battle court truly is." Longqing joined in. "That's right, my karma won't involve my teacher. He took me in and did what he could already. Back then he did not wish for me to bear such karma, it was my own insistence." He looked at Yitsong and continued, "Kanger, your teacher was also impulsive like you in his youth. I'm telling you about these things, not because I want you to do anything for me, but to tell you that each person has their fate, and the only things one can control are one's own matters. Yitsong fell into silence after hearing this. Heaven-supporting ancestor observed the master-disciple duo, his mood turning heavy as well. He knew of the battle courts might even more clearly than Longqing. With your current cultivation level, even if you're prepared to sacrifice yourself, you probably cannot withstand the battle court. If you die, the battle court won't spare your progeny either. Although I don't know what you're relying on, I think it's impossible for you to completely end the karma of the Long clan. Heaven-supporting ancestor looked at Longqing and warned. He paused, then continued. Moreover, I can feel some powerful force approaching the celestial spirit great world. I was surprised before, but now I think that powerful force must be the battle court. Longqing showed a smile and said, I have my own methods. In fact, I have felt it too, which is why I chose to talk about this matter, and do not shy away from your presence. Heaven-supporting ancestor stared at Longqing and spoke earnestly. If the battle court intends to slaughter the celestial spirit great world, I will take Yitsong and leave. Although you and your disciple have a deep bond, I also care for him. Longqing did not respond and simply picked up the cup of tea on the table that had long since turned cold. Yitsong took a deep breath, slowly stood up, and his eyes became resolute. He looked at Longqing and said, Master, I will remember the principles you've shared, but your karma, I want to help you. It's just the battle court, right? I don't believe they are truly invincible. Heaven-supporting ancestor glared and said, You little brat, what power do you have to boast? Without my power, how are you any different from an ant? Yitsong turned his head to look at him and said, If I can't fight them, I will protect the Long clan. Master, you can rest assured, I won't seek death. I remember what I promised you, and once I fulfill what I promised, I might have the strength to confront the battle court. Heaven-supporting ancestor opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to say that even if you complete that task, it would still be far from enough to shake the battle court. Chapter 570. Heavenly Dao's Creation. 10,000 years of devotion. After inheriting the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Gu An's life returned to its usual tranquility. His disciples at the dojo were oblivious to the fact that he had practiced the immortal Emperor's eye as he continued refining Dao treasures. Aside from crafting a Dao treasure for the deep-sea dragon carp, he was also preparing one for Jiangqiong, Longqing, Yangjian, and Zhangbuku. Of course, these were just being prepared in advance. As for when he would give them away, it would depend on his mood. Refining treasures, picking herbs, and occasionally giving guidance to disciples. The wheels of time accelerated their turning amidst such a rhythm of life. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the primordial era of the celestial spirit great world, creation was constant. Not only were beings of exceptional talent born, but superior heavenly materials and earthly treasures, as well as heaven and earth treasures, would also be nurtured. Treasures were not only created through refining. Heaven and earth themselves could give birth to innate treasures. Innate treasures could more easily trigger the rules of heaven and earth, and each contained immense power. Those who obtained an innate treasure would find it easier to become formidable figures who could stir the winds and clouds of the world. Against such a backdrop, discourse about the heavenly Tao began to spread again in the human world. Those who acquired supreme treasures were branded as favored by the heavenly Tao, causing all beings to fear and yearn for the heavenly Tao even more. One day, after Guan had just finished refining a Tao treasure, he stood up having decided on the foundation for the new treasure's refinement, without even bidding farewell to Shenzhen. Shenzhen didn't mind too much, absorbed in the Tao treasure within the great cauldron. She sensed a kind of Tao aura she had never perceived before. How can he possess so many types of the power of the great Tao? Shenzhen muttered. In her view, mastering one type of the power of the great Tao was enough to tower over all beings. Yet Guan had displayed over a dozen, unfathomably deep. She simply exclaimed without giving it much further thought, and concentrated on comprehending the Tao. In recent millennia, as she comprehended the Tao, a desire had taken root in her heart. It seemed she was searching for something, but even she wasn't clear on what it was. She instinctively felt this longing. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. sight. This yearning drove her to pursue enlightenment with more diligence than in the first half of her life, no longer allowing herself to slack off. Elsewhere, Guan arrived at the edge of a cliff and looked down at the mountain path below. Mountains rose high on both sides of the path, blocking the sunlight. The cliff face was covered in grass and vines, creating a quiet, desolate atmosphere. At this moment, a scholar with a bookcase strapped to his back was making his way forward, leaning on a wooden staff. The mountain path was steep without stone steps, and weeds covered the sharp rocks, making his advance even slower. This scholar was the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. Under Guan's gaze, a white fox followed behind the celestial spirit god. The white fox had searched for 10,000 years, and finally found the reincarnated celestial spirit god. 10,000 years ago, the eldest brother killed an evil person in the city to save the youngest of 5, leading to his being pursued by the authorities. Meanwhile, the 3 white foxes, as agreed, resurrected the youngest brother. However, having shed blood, they could no longer control their murderous impulses, and when anyone troubled them, they would find a way to eliminate them. Eventually, the immortal cultivation sect discovered them. With their low cultivation level, they couldn't resist capture by the cultivators. They were taken prisoner, and the youngest, due to his demonic power, was also taken by the sect. Decades later, the youngest seized the chance to rescue the 3 white foxes, only to find 2 had already died tragically. He could only flee with the surviving one, who though alive, was at death's door. The surviving white fox, named Su Jin, was gravely injured, forcing the ensuing escape to depend on the youngest's protection. The immortal cultivation sect began to chase them because she once transformed into a courtesan. The cultivators started to speculate maliciously about their relationship, spreading rumors far and wide, damaging their reputation and leading more cultivators to join the hunt. Under the oppression of both the secular world and the immortal cultivation realm, feelings developed between the youngest and Su Jin. When the youngest sent Su Jin to the demon race's territory for her safety, he died by the blade of a cultivator, while covering her escape. Such tragedies were not unusual in this world. Su Jin was fortunate to become a disciple of a great power from the demon race, and even obtain the reincarnation technique. She searched for the youngest for 10,000 years, until she finally found him in this life. Of course, Guan played a role in her finding him, as the celestial spirit god was covered by his karmic influence. Without his intention, she would never have found him. The celestial spirit god had been reincarnated hundreds of times, experiencing various lives. Each death caused his will to briefly awaken, allowing him to take in the experiences of reincarnation. Guan could sense the changes in the celestial spirit god's mindset, which is why he gave him the opportunity. In this life, the celestial spirit god was named Bai Sheng, hailing from a remote town. He was on his way to the imperial city of the dynasty to participate in the imperial examination. As he reached the highest point of the mountain path, the downhill path lay ahead. Stopping, he set down his bookcase and began to wipe off his sweat. He turned his head and looked back down the mountain path he came by, beholding the undulating expanse of forest that stretched out magnificently without end. A smile appeared on his face, and a feeling of exuberant pride welled up in his heart. Even if all my reading brings no rewards, having traveled thousands of miles, this life is still worth it, Bai Sheng said with heartfelt emotion, a proud and satisfied smile spreading across his handsome face. Suddenly, he caught sight of a little white fox in the grass below, and with a smile and a wave he greeted it. "Little fox, we meet again. Can't you bear to part with me?" Upon hearing his words, Su Jin promptly emerged from the grass, hurried up the mountain, and affectionately rubbed against Bai Sheng's trouser leg. Bai Sheng was amused by her, then took out some of his rations and shared a piece with her. Guan stood atop the mountain, gazing down at the joyful scene of the reunion between the man and the fox. The stories of scholars and demons made Guan think of the ancient Wuxia literature, strange tales from a Chinese studio, from his past life. In the celestial spirit great world, romances between humans and demons are not uncommon, but they're not as fraught with complications. Few humans betray a demon and live to tell the tale, given the disparity in strength. In this life, The end of Bai Sheng and Su Jin's story was destined to be a tragedy, but with Gu An's intervention, anything could change. Guan was ready to use Su Jin as a test for the celestial spirit god. If the celestial spirit god still lacked compassion, then it would continue to languish in reincarnation. When Guan was no longer fearful of the celestial court, that would mark the moment of its annihilation. With time on his hands, Guan decided to get involved. He turned and strode toward the forest. In an instant, his attire transformed dramatically into that of a traveling martial hero, dust-covered yet retaining the demeanor of a gallant figure of the martial world. He wore a broad-brimmed hat, and had the Cyan Hong sword strapped to his waist. Su Jin was nibbling on the pastry, her eyes constantly on Bai Sheng. Staring at Bai Sheng, she felt somewhat dazed. Thousands of years had passed, and he had become completely different. In her memory, Xiaowu never had such presence, always wearing a worried look on his face. But the secret technique she practiced told her this man's soul was indeed Xiaowu's. In this life I will definitely not let you suffer, Su Jin thought silently. Suddenly, she turned her head. Her movement caught Bai Sheng's attention, prompting him to look up as well. The nearby trees shook, and they saw a figure emerge from the woods. Seeing Gu An's attire, Bai Sheng grew nervous, fearing the other might be a bandit. He quickly stuffed Su Jin into his book box, and then turned to face Guan, feigning calm. Guan lifted his head, his youthful yet somewhat weathered face showing from beneath his broad-brimmed hat. Bai Sheng instantly relaxed, feeling that Guan seemed like a kind person. "I'm Guan, just passing through. It's rare to meet someone here, so I thought I'd come say hello. Hope I didn't scare you?" Guan said with an enthusiastic smile. Bai Sheng quickly raised his hand in greeting. "Scare me? Not at all. My name is Bai Sheng, from Lu County, on my way to the Imperial City." Guan curiously asked, "Are you going to take the official examination?" "That's right. Where might Brother Gu be headed?" "Coincidentally, I'm also going to the Imperial City. How about we travel together? I can protect you. In return, you can keep me company and talk about your studies. You scholars know much that I don't. I've practiced martial arts since I was young and never had much education. Actually, I've always envied the world of scholars," Guan said with a laugh, his easygoing manner increasing Bai Sheng's favorable impression of him. The two sat down to chat, and found they got along splendidly. Suddenly, Su Jin jumped out of the book box, causing Guan to be taken aback. Bai Sheng quickly introduced her, explaining that he and the little fox were destined to meet. Foxes are very spiritual, and there've been plenty of stories about scholars and fox spirits throughout history. "Brother Bai, you must be careful. She might be a demon," Guan teased. Su Jin couldn't help but glare at Guan, finding him too talkative. Bai Sheng's handsome face reddened as he hurriedly replied, "How could that be? Even if she were a demon, there's no way such a story would happen between us." As soon as these words were spoken, Su Jin's gaze towards Guan was filled with annoyance, though Bai Sheng failed to notice the change in her eyes. Chapter 571. The First Calamity. Dao Court. Guan and Su Jin accompanied Bai Sheng on his way to the Imperial City. With laughter and joy along the way, Bai Sheng had never been so happy. During this period, Guan would use a clone to replace himself while his real body went to pick medicinal herbs. Su Jin was a 10,000-year-old great demon, already in the Nirvana realm, but still had not seen through the switch between Gu An's true body and his clone. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. They had not yet reached the Imperial City, and with 2 years until the examination, Bai Sheng was not in a hurry. He had set out early, wanting to travel and expand his horizons. On this day, the rain drizzled incessantly. Bai Sheng and Guan came to a small pavilion in the mountains to rest, and Su Jin leaped out of the bookcase, perched on Bai Sheng's shoulder, and licked his face as if trying to help him wipe the rainwater away. Bai Sheng had grown accustomed to her affection, and didn't pay it much mind. He was discussing the local customs and culture with Guan. Although it was his first visit, he had read about this place in books and was very excited. The rainy weather did not dampen his spirits. Guan held the wine gourd in his hand, drinking while listening to Bai Sheng talk about the past and present, discussing the masterpieces that had been born here and the stories that were worth singing and weeping over. When Bai Sheng had talked until his mouth was dry and his throat parched, Guan tossed him the wine gourd. Bai Sheng caught it and poured it directly into his mouth. I've heard that there are ghosts and apparitions around here, but I don't know if it's true or not. I've practiced martial arts for over 30 years, yet I've never seen a demon or ghost. Guan, with the Cyan Hong sword in hand, spoke eagerly. Su Jin couldn't help but roll her eyes at him, feeling that he was overestimating himself. She really wanted to speak, but she was afraid of scaring Bai Sheng. Wuxia world. Bai Sheng said with a laugh. If there is, I would like to meet one too. You're as weak as a chicken. Aren't you scared of ghosts? One eventually dies. Rather than living a quiet life, never seeing ghosts or demons, I wouldn't regret or be afraid even if I died under the claws of a demon or ghost. Bai Sheng replied with an untroubled laugh, his eyes shining. Guan felt that Bai Sheng seemed frail, but in fact he was full of energy, interested in everything, and full of fighting spirit. This guy had a tenacity inherent in his bones, truly worthy of being the reincarnation of a celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god, despite different origins in each reincarnation, would retain some of the original personality traits. That was also why Bai Sheng could attract Su Jin's attention. Guan said with a smile, "You should practice martial arts, not just study." Bai Sheng stood up, holding the wine gourd and assumed a pose, executing a set of awkward fist technique, then said proudly, "Isn't it better to excel in both literature and martial arts? Why don't you teach me a set of swordsmanship? I think swords complement poetry." "Alright, let's start now." Really? Hearing Guan's words, Bai Sheng was overjoyed and immediately dragged Guan to practice swordsmanship. After beginning sword training, Guan was not all smiles and laughter with Bai Sheng, occasionally correcting Bai Sheng's posture with the hilt of the sword, which angered Su Jin. Once Bai Sheng was able to accept her, she'd make Guan pay. As she thought this, she saw Guan applying more force, causing Bai Sheng to cry out in pain, which further annoyed her. "If you're afraid of pain, you can give up." "No problem, I can hold on." Guan deliberately asked this, and upon hearing Bai Sheng's reply, Su Jin could only bear with it. In the days that followed, every time they rested, Bai Sheng would pester Guan to practice swordsmanship. In Su Jin's view, this sword Dao was quite ordinary. Practicing it was a waste of time. She planned to teach Bai Sheng immortal cultivation later, since only by stepping onto the immortal path could he stay with her forever. Another half a year passed. Spring had just begun. Guan and Bai Sheng arrived at the gates of the imperial city, and seeing the majestic gates, Bai Sheng couldn't help but raise his arms and cheer. Su Jin, perched on his shoulder, squinted her fox-like eyes. She sensed a heavy demon chi. There were demons in the city. It seemed trouble was brewing. As expected of the imperial city under the sun of heaven's feet, majestic and imposing, the destination of the celestial mandate, "This is the most prosperous place under heaven," said Bai Sheng excitedly. Guan smiled and said, "There are not only one dynasty in this world. To speak of the celestial mandate like this is a bit presumptuous." Bai Sheng glanced at Guan and asked, "Have you been to other dynasties?" "No." "Then let's first believe that this is the greatest city." Bai Sheng lifted his bookcase and strode toward the imperial city. As he walked, he turned back to ask Guan the purpose of his visit to the imperial city. Guan was evasive, which made Su Jin even more vigilant. The crowd in front of the city gate was vast. They blended into it and quickly vanished from sight. At the same time, on the other side of the human world, Leia stood atop a mountain, looking down at the valley below, where weeds sprawled wildly with the faint outline of ancient attic buildings visible. This was Profound Valley, his first residence when he joined the Supreme Sect years ago. Leia gazed at the valley, looking lost in thought. A figure approached from behind him. It was Long Qing. "Elderly, should I have someone tidy this up?" Long Qing asked, weariness apparent in his features. With the impending assault from the battle court drawing near, his cultivation grew more arduous. He would not have left his practice had Leia not returned. Leia still wore his black garments, with stubble on his face and his hair casually tied, exuding the air of a wanderer from the martial world, not that of someone from immortal cultivation. "No need, I'm just taking a glance. You don't need to accompany me especially. I will be leaving soon." Leah replied softly as he overlooked Profound Valley. In his eyes, the weeds in the valley disappeared, replaced by fields of medicinal herbs. He saw 3 young boys playing and frolicking. After hearing this, Longqing nodded slightly and then turned to leave. He could tell that Leah was preoccupied, but he had no intention of prying. Could any worry be greater than his own life and death? As the millennia passed, Longqing grew increasingly uneasy, always harboring the feeling of an impending calamity. After Longqing departed, Leah remained in the same place, deep in thought. The divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder and said, "Still looking, huh? The master isn't dead. He just left. I'm not worried about him. I just wanted to take one last look at this place before leaving. I might never return," Leah answered. Hearing this, the divine exotic immortal spirit cocked its head, asking in surprise, "Where exactly are you going? You still won't tell me? Ever since you practiced that miracle skill, I can't hear your inner thoughts. Living inside you, I feel like an outsider." Towards the end, its tone was of a complaint. "I'm heading to outer heaven. Where exactly, I'm not sure. I want to follow Gu An's steps, and also look for Zhang Buku. Didn't you say that the power of the divine exotic realm master still exists? Maybe Zhang Buku is still alive." With that, Leah turned and looked up at the celestial vault. He leaped up, transforming into a beam of sword light, piercing the sky. As he soared further from the ground, the blue of the celestial vault darkened to black. Stars emerged and quickly became resplendent. Suddenly, a powerful force of mana descended from above, and Li Ya's eyes narrowed as a sword materialized in front of him, its blade facing forward, forcefully severing this mana. "Stop!" A shout thundered from the heavens, causing Leah to slow down. He squinted and saw a man in silver armor, spear in hand, rapidly stopping thousands of feet above him. "Without the celestial Tao order, you are not allowed to leave the celestial spirit great world," the silver armor man pronounced, looking down at Leah with a commanding voice. Leah scoffed and asked, "The celestial Tao order? Since when does the celestial spirit great world have such a rule?" He was filled with confusion. For the past 3,000 years, he had been secluded in sword enlightenment, and upon leaving seclusion he did not hear of any celestial Tao order. But the other's tone, daring to regulate the entire celestial spirit great world, was enough evidence of his extraordinary background, which Leah found ludicrous. The great world had just been reshaped, and such a powerful force had emerged? Could it be that an outer heaven power had descended and ruled the celestial spirit great world in a very short time? The silver armor man replied, "This celestial rule has been established for 1,000 years, set by the Tao court. I advise you not to act rashly. Above me, there is a free immortal who guards. Even if you pass me, you will not reach outer heaven. Should you injure me, it will be seen as a challenge to the Tao court, and you will be doomed never to transcend." The Tao court? Leah frowned. He had only been detached from the mundane for 3,000 years. How had the Tao court suddenly emerged? Upon further thought, he realized that today's great world was vast and boundless. Even 3,000 years ago, his knowledge of the world had been superficial, and he certainly was not aware of its full extent. Perhaps the Tao court was the overlord from another side of the world. What purpose does such a celestial rule serve? To trap all beings within this world? Leah asked mockingly. The silver armor man's brows furrowed and said, "Your sword is no trivial matter. You must be a great power that commands respect. You must have lived from the previous era until now. Let me tell you, a terrible calamity is approaching. It will be the first calamity since the primordial era to affect the entire great world. Going to outer heaven at this time will only lead to one's demise. The Tao court is looking out for your welfare, wanting to gather the power of the great world, to collectively resist the threat from outer heaven." Chapter 572. Disaster looms. If it had been before, Leah would have certainly barged into the Tao court's blockade without hesitation, but now upon hearing the silver armor man speak of an impending disaster, he couldn't help but calm down and ponder carefully. He had a clear memory of the great battle that took place 20,000 years ago, which clearly involved powerhouses from outer heaven. Leah gave the silver armor man a deep look, and then turned to fly downwards. The silver armor man watched as Li Yi disappeared into the sea of clouds, and then slowly ascended himself. Divine exotic immortal spirit sat on Li Yi's shoulder, teasing, "You've actually stopped being reckless. It feels quite unfamiliar to me." Li Yi snorted. "I'm not in any hurry to leave, and besides, if the world is in trouble, I need to stay and protect the Supreme Sect." SE of the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. To reach this point in his life, aside from Gu An's protection, the support he had received from the Supreme Sect was substantial, and even now, he still considered himself a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Divine exotic immortal spirit sighed. "You really have grown up. What's with that tone? You make it sound like you're talking to a junior." Leo immediately pulled divine exotic immortal spirit down from his shoulder and vigorously kneaded him in his arms. A breeze blew over with the sea of clouds, and as Leo bantered with divine exotic immortal spirit, he suddenly felt as if nothing had really changed after all. At dawn. Source web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron New. Guan sat on the eaves, watching the rising sun, his gaze reaching far into the distance. He saw the battle court, searching for the celestial spirit Great World. Because the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had reshaped the Tao rules, the new celestial spirit Great World was temporarily separated from the path of the Great Tao, making it hard for the battle court to directly find the celestial spirit Great World. Nevertheless, through causality calculations, the battle court was getting increasingly closer to the celestial spirit Great World. Immortal Emperor. Guan pondered this name. In the memory of the silent destruction god Emperor, the Lord of the War Court was the Immortal Emperor. The Tao practice of this Immortal Emperor was unfathomably profound, and it was uncertain whether he would come this time. He had already sensed the auras of more than a dozen innate golden immortals within the approaching War Court's forces, with more battle court powerhouses arriving continuously. Judging by the situation, they were determined to slaughter all the descendants of the Long clan. Guan wasn't the least bit perturbed. He was, on the contrary, looking forward to the arrival of the great battle, during which he could reap lifespan extensively. Generally, Guan wouldn't engage in slaughter, but if someone threatened him, it was an opportunity to kill righteously and justifiably. "Brother Gu, good morning." Bai Sheng's laughter came from the courtyard, and Guan looked down to see Bai Sheng waving at him. So he smiled and nodded in response. "Are you going to read books again today?" Guan asked. The civil examination was still a while away. It had been a month since they arrived in the imperial city, and every day Bai Sheng would stroll through the city, mainly to find books to read. With Su Jin's help, Bai Sheng had come across quite a bit of money on the way, and was now quite wealthy. Bai Sheng laughed. "I'm not reading today. I heard there's an immortal in the city taking disciples, and I want to see if it's a real immortal. Brother Gu, want to come along?" Guan shook his head. "You go ahead, I'm off to find someone for a drink." "You and your drinking." After chatting for a bit, Bai Sheng left with Su Jin. Guan watched Bai Sheng leave, knowing that once the impending disaster in the imperial city was over, it would be his time to leave as well. Having accompanied Bai Sheng for a year, he had scattered his worries, and whatever happened between Bai Sheng and Su Jin in the future, Guan would simply observe from afar. The imperial city bustled day after day. In the eyes of mortals, this imperial dynasty was the most powerful entity in the world, manipulating power, capable of altering heaven and earth. Little did they know, the world is vast, and even the seemingly immovable behemoths can be undone in an instant. If Guan didn't intervene, this imperial dynasty would be annihilated within days, and not even Su Jin in the Nirvana realm could stop it. The impending disaster would change Bai Sheng's mindset, igniting a fiery passion for immortal cultivation like never before. Guan's thoughts drifted away as time rapidly slipped by. Dusk approached. As night neared, lights gradually lit up the city, and the imperial city became even more lively, with the noise reaching Guan's ears. He still sat on the eaves, and following his gaze, billowing dark clouds were rolling toward the imperial city, creating a heavy oppression. At that moment, on another street in the city, Bai Sheng stood on tiptoes in the crowd, looking towards the stage where a Taoist wearing a mask was performing a sword dance. with 5 disciples dressed as demons circling around him. The Taoist swordplay occasionally sped up, sharp as the wind, eliciting cheers from the onlookers. Bai Sheng didn't notice that Su Jin on his shoulder was looking up at the celestial vault. This demon Qi. Su Jin's eyes revealed a hint of dread. She hadn't expected the imperial city to attract such a terrifying demon. This is not good. She turned her head to look at Bai Sheng and licked his face with her tongue. Stop it, I'll buy you something to eat after I'm done watching. Bai Sheng said casually, his gaze fixed on the stage, filled with curiosity. Su Jin became anxious. She bit Bai Sheng's neck, causing him pain that made him cover his neck with his hand. Without waiting for him to speak, she jumped to the ground and ran outside. There were too many people around, and Bai Sheng, worried she might come to harm, could only follow her. After squeezing through the crowd, Bai Sheng saw Su Jin squatting under a tree not far away, and he hurried over. You! Just as Bai Sheng was about to scold Su Jin, she suddenly transformed, turning into a woman in a white dress with a bewitching face. This shocked Bai Sheng so much that he instinctively stepped back. Smack! Su Jin grabbed Bai Sheng's wrist and pulled him in front of her. Listen, I'm only going to say this once. Don't scream and shout. A demon is about to descend, and everyone in the city will be devoured by it. I'm no match for it. I can only protect you. You need to come with me now. Su Jin stared at Bai Sheng and spoke solemnly, then pulling him, started walking towards the city gate. Wait a minute. Bai Sheng came back to his senses and hurriedly said, trying hard to pull his hand away, but he could not break free from Su Jin's grip. Su Jin turned to look at him, her brow deeply furrowed. Bai Sheng quickly said, even if you can't save the entire city's population, at least bring Brother Gu with us. Su Jin snorted. Why should I bring him? After all, we've been traveling together, we're already like brothers. How could we abandon him? Bai Sheng said in a pleading tone. He didn't care that he was shocked by Su Jin being a demon. He believed Su Jin wouldn't harm him. If she would, he would have been eaten already on their journey, so why wait until today? Fine, Su Jin said impatiently, and then took Bai Sheng to their residence. Boom! The sound of thunder rumbled, but the people inside the imperial city were still unaware of the danger. Within those thunderclouds, a terrifying figure was stirring, and a pair of blood-red eyes loomed over the human world. Suddenly, countless demon birds burst out of the sea of clouds, sweeping toward the imperial city, their flapping sounds merging together, instantly drowning out the city's hubbub and disturbing the citizens. In the woods, an Exian was sitting on a stone by the brook, fiddling with the 6 paths mirror in her hand. Footsteps approached, and the sect hierarch of Qiankuan sect, Yi Qingshan, arrived. His hair was white, but his face still looked young. He was wearing a wide, exquisite robe, and his presence as the head of a sect was hard to conceal. He came behind an Exian, bowed and said, Predecessor, the Tao court sent people over, claiming that a great calamity is about to come to the world, and all sects must join forces to repel the enemy. They hope that our Qiankuan sect will accept the celestial Tao order to coordinate with the Tao court when the calamity arrives. However, this theory of heaven requires the infusion of Qiankuan sect's destiny, and I'm somewhat hesitant. An Exian replied. If there is hesitation, then refuse. Lately, she had gained new insights into the 6 paths mirror, and if it weren't for Yi Qingshan's call, she wouldn't have wanted to come out. But the Tao court is powerful, and compared to it, our Qiankuan sect is like the light of a rice grain against the brilliance of the moon. If we refuse, won't the Tao court target us? Yi Qingshan asked with a frown, his tone full of worry. If they become enemies just because we're unwilling to cooperate, it means that the Tao court does not have the greatness of spirit to shoulder the world. They just want to take the opportunity to calculate against all sections. Such a sect will sooner or later become an enemy. An Exian said casually as she stood up, turned around to look at Yi Qingshan, and asked, Is that all? Yi Qingshan was taken aback and replied, There's one more thing. Someone in the sect has achieved enlightenment, and has become crazed. Can you take a look at him? Why not bring him over here? To tell the truth, his cultivation level can be considered top tier within the sect, and we can't handle him. He's locked himself in his cave mansion, raving that the sky is falling. I've never seen him so afraid. I wonder if it has something to do with the calamity mentioned by the Dao court? Yi Qingshan frowned again. There was something else he didn't mention. In fact, these years, during cultivation, he too had felt restless, with a sense of impending disaster hanging over his head. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 573, Battle Court Mythology, Confronting Destiny. In the early morning, the sunlight cut through the smoke-filled ruins of the imperial city, where corpses and broken walls stained with bloodstains could be seen everywhere. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng, covered in dust and ash, stood atop the debris, staring at the horrific scenes in all directions, his pupils trembling, unable to accept what was before him. The city he considered the most prosperous had turned into ruins overnight, and the sight of the half-remaining mask of the sword-wielding Taoist had seen earlier touched him even more deeply. How could this happen? Bai Sheng muttered to himself, his voice trembling. He felt as though he was in a nightmare from which he could not awaken. He looked up into the distance, then immediately rushed down, beginning his search for Guan, combing through bodies along the way, fighting back fear and disgust. As the sun continued to rise, reaching high noon, he still hadn't found Guan, his hands now covered in fresh blood. Exhausted, he collapsed onto the street, lacking even the strength to lift his head. After a morning of searching, his heart knew no fear, only numbness. A figure appeared before him. He saw the person's shoes but couldn't bring himself to speak. Su Jin looked down at Bai Sheng and sighed. Didn't you say you'd rather die in the jaws of demons and ghosts than live a dull life? Last night, you witnessed a great demon that most mortals will never see in their entire lives. Shouldn't you feel fortunate? Bai Sheng hung his head and asked weakly. Are you such a demon as well? Source, web novel. Com, updated on In0new. Omicron, I do not delight in killing as they do, but I have killed people, killed demons, Su Jin responded, her answer plunging Bai Sheng into silence. Su Jin continued. Since you've witnessed supernatural powers, why not cultivate immortality with me in the future? Help me find Brother Gu. Bai Sheng struggled to speak, and after uttering those 5 words, he completely lost his strength and fainted, toppling forward, but fortunately, Su Jin caught him in time. Su Jin held Bai Sheng in her arms, a smile appearing on her face. She had fantasized about this moment for 10,000 years and had finally achieved it. Don't worry, in this life I will surely protect you, just as you desperately protected me 10,000 years ago. Su Jin murmured softly to herself, lifting Bai Sheng up, and then soaring into the sky. Her divine sense enveloped the entire city, before continuing outward. Strange, where on earth did he go? Could a demon have devoured him? Su Jin wondered aloud to herself, but she didn't dwell on it. After all, she had already searched for Bai Sheng on behalf of him. If he couldn't be found, it wasn't her fault. She flew off into the distance with Bai Sheng in her arms, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The clouds above had scattered, and the sunlight spilled over the devastated imperial city, and gradually, a hint of murky energy began to dissipate. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless. In the courtyard, Guan lay in a rocking chair reading a book, occasionally instructing Shenzhen on how to control the Taiqing true fire beneath the artifact refining cauldron. It had been 10 years since he had parted from Bai Sheng. Shenzhen turned her head to look at Guan and asked, Guan, what's the origin of that Dao court? Within the Qingkuan sect, it's widely rumored that the Dao court will become the sect that unifies the entire world. Guan answered casually. Just like the Holy Court, the Dao court was once the ruler of a part of the great heaven and earth. After the Great Thousand World was reconstructed, they grew rapidly. Of course, they were able to do this because they had the backing of a highly practiced and powerful being. How strong is he compared to you? Shenzhen asked with a raised eyebrow. Guan laughed. Haven't fought, hard to say. Yeah, right, with you talking like that, that person definitely isn't your match. Shenzhen rolled her eyes at Guan, who could hear her admiration for him in her heart, amazed by his strength, though her tone suggested otherwise. Guan, while turning the pages of his book, said, "Nevertheless, it's still too early for the Tao Court to dream of unifying the celestial spirit great world. How far into the future can you see?" Xinjun asked curiously. In fact, she was extremely curious about Guan's cultivation level, but had always restrained herself, feeling too embarrassed to ask. Given the chance to probe, she wouldn't miss it. "Don't ask anymore. The will of heaven cannot be revealed." Guan brushed off the question, and then turned over, his back to Xinjun. Xinjun huffed, and then focused on comprehending the Tao treasure within the artifact refining cauldron. Silence returned to the courtyard, with only the occasional wind passing through. The three pristine true fire beneath the artifact refining cauldron flickered ceaselessly, as if it would never go out. As it wavered, time swiftly passed by. Spring came and went, and autumn arrived. 500 years had passed. 500 years later, Guan still lay on the same chair, while Xinjun remained seated in front of the artifact refining cauldron. Guan turned over and rose, tucking the green hero travelogue into his chest, picked up the Cyan Hong sword, and drew it from its scabbard. The sound of the blade sliding from its sheath startled Xinjun. She turned her head towards Guan, watched him handling the sword, and was about to ask what he was doing when suddenly her expression changed, and she looked up sharply. Not just her, everyone in the dojo was alarmed and looked up. Above them, the azure celestial vault began to pepper with black dots, which quickly expanded like black holes, riddling the vault with 1,000 gaping wounds. "What is that?" Xinjun furrowed her brow and asked. Guan did not look up. He gently swung the Cyan Hong sword, replying, "It's a transcendent force from beyond the Great Thousand World, known as the Battle Court." The Battle Court? Xinjun had never heard of this name before. She asked in surprise, "Why do all these major sects like to name themselves Court, Holy Court, Tao Court, Battle Court? Your book's Celestial Court can't possibly be real, can it?" She had always suspected the investiture of the gods and journey to the west to be true, and now, thinking about it, it seemed very possible. After all, Guan's Tao practice was beyond her imagination. "It cannot be said, it cannot be said," Guan said with a meaningful smile. He was thinking about what sword technique to use to sweep away the battle court. At that moment, he felt something and turned his head towards the distance, a flicker of unusual light in his eyes. He was looking in the direction of the Supreme Sect. At the same time, on the remote Taitsong continent, Candle Star and Yitsong appeared beneath Longqing's attic, while the soul of the heaven-supporting ancestor emerged from within Longqing's body. He gazed up at the celestial vault, his brow deeply furrowed. "The battle court is truly fearsome," murmured the heaven-supporting ancestor to himself. Candlestar, too, looked up at the celestial vault, his face showing disbelief. The heaven-supporting ancestor turned to him and asked, "Aren't you also from the battle court? I heard you wanted the Supreme Sect to take the battle court's place?" Yitsong looked at Candlestar as well, detecting the sarcasm in the heaven-supporting ancestor's voice. Taking a deep breath, Candlestar said, "I didn't expect the battle court to have such depths. It seems that the existence has finished its seclusion, and has called back those great powers who have been gone for so long. It's odd. He clearly despises the Long clan, and it was just those war gods targeting them," the heaven-supporting ancestor speculated. "After all, even the celestial spirit god has fallen, and yet the battle court still dares to come. It must have some confidence." Candlestar couldn't answer. His heart was in turmoil. The oppressive force of the battle court's arrival made him tremble with fear. He dared not imagine the sight of facing those war gods, especially that existence. That existence was the myth and legend of the battle court. Even though he had reached the profound Yuan-free immortal realm, he had never seen that existence. Clang, the door of the attic flew open, and Longqing walked out, descending the stairs at a steady pace, his expression calm. A figure abruptly appeared at the base of the stairs. It was Longqing's son, Long Tongue. "Father, what is the origin of the anomaly in the sky? Why do I feel my chi blood surging uncontrollably? I even feel..." Longting asked with a furrowed brow. Longqing reached the landing and looked down at him. "Even feeling hostility, murderous intentions?" Long Tongue's eyes widened in shock as he pressed, "Father, Do you have the same feeling? Long Qing continued down the stairs, his gaze shifting towards the celestial vault. Some things are too late to tell you, and there is no need for you to know. Just watch. Just watch. Father, what are you going to do? Long Teng's eyebrows knitted again, an intense unease building within him. Long Qing stepped in front of him, giving the unnerving feeling that he could disappear at any moment, which instinctively made Long Teng reach out, attempting to grasp Long Qing's robe. Candle Star, Yi Tsong and the heaven-supporting ancestor, all aware of the Long clan's destiny, kept silent, their eyes fixed on Long Qing. Yi Tsong clenched his fists tightly, filled with reluctance. He had not expected the battle court to come so swiftly. 500 years was a long time for mortals, but for him, it was insufficient for his cultivation level to break through, far from enough to aid his master. Just feeling the vast oppressive force enveloping heaven and earth told Yi Tsong that he could not meddle in this karmic destiny. But how would his master face it? Yi Tsong knew that his own cultivation level was not much higher than his master's, but his master's composure filled him with anticipation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 574. Annihilate completely the celestial spirit. Great World's celestial vault was covered with black holes of varying sizes. Every creature within the celestial spirit great world, as long as they looked up at the celestial vault, would see such a phenomenon and become panic-stricken. Since the vast majority of living beings had never witnessed such a phenomenon in their lives, it was inevitable that they would be fearful. All the major sects quickly formed arrays and sent great power cultivators to observe the sky. The vast oppressive force of the battle court enveloped the entire great world. Yet no creature from the battle court had appeared. Long Qing took 2 steps forward, looking at the myriad of black holes with an extremely calm expression. He had already prepared himself to die. Long Qing looked at his father's silhouette, unable to resist asking, "Father, what exactly are you planning to do?" Long Qing didn't answer him. The protective formation of the supreme sect rose up, and figures began appearing around the attic. They were either high-ranking individuals of the supreme sect or descendants of the Long family. After Long Qing issued a precautionary command, he no longer spoke, and no matter who asked him, he did not respond. Sar the novel _fire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Yi Tsong looked at his master, feeling extremely distressed. Just then, brilliant lights arose from the horizon, all of them entering the black holes within the celestial vault. The lights entered the black holes and disappeared without causing any disturbance, as if traveling through time and space. Far beyond, in the depths of the universe, a dark purple light path stretching millions of miles was rapidly extending. Figures were walking on the light path, with black holes continuously appearing on both sides. Some figures stepped into the black holes, while others stepped out from within. On this dark purple light path, leading at the front was a 9-headed flood dragon covered in black dragon scales. Its 9 necks were like mountains, and its 9 dragon heads continuously spewed intense heat waves. Source: webnovel.com, updated on Omicron New. This dragon was larger than any meteor it passed by, advancing like a creation god mountain, dignified and vast. Following behind it was an overwhelming march of creatures from the battle court. Humans, demons, and ghostly evils, all moving in the same direction. In the midst of this multitude, a sword cultivator advanced. He wore a red robe tightened at the waist, the sleeves broad. His features were young and handsome, and his hair was snow-white. He looked ahead with furrowed brows. His name was Feng Xian, a renowned prodigy of the battle court, who possessed the cultivation level of a profound yuan-free immortal. He was shocked by the sight before him. Having lived millions of years, it was his first time seeing the battle court amass such military force. Looking around, the terrifying aura emitted by those figures made him feel alienated. He even doubted if these people were from the battle court. Had he only been in seclusion for several 100,000 years, for the battle court to have improved this much? Just to invade a great thousand world, is it necessary to send so many people? I heard that the silent destruction god emperor fell in that great thousand world, which is why there's such a massive mobilization. What? The silent destruction god emperor fell? How is that possible, being such an ancient being? We're going to the celestial spirit great world. This great world has just been reshaped. The world itself poses no threat to us, but there is an extremely terrifying being hiding inside. And it also intends to support the Long clan, which is provoking the battle court. The Long clan? They haven't been completely wiped out? Listening to the discussions around him, Feng Xian's mind conjured up an image of the silent destruction god emperor. He had only seen the silent destruction god emperor once when he went to listen to the emperor's doctrine. In his mind, the silent destruction god emperor's Tao practice was unfathomable, and even the high level of the battle court were very polite toward him. Such a being had actually fallen. Feng Xian felt uneasy. Although there were a lot of them, the more forces the battle court deployed, the more dangerous he felt this battle would be. The Tao practices of the high-level members of the battle court were beyond his imagination. Those beings certainly saw more than he did. Facing an unknown great battle, how should he ensure his own safety? Just as Feng Xian was lost in chaotic thoughts, from some of the black holes ahead flew out cultivators of the celestial spirit great world. When they saw the unending battle court light path, they were all startled. Before they could speak, nearby creatures from the battle court quickly took action. The great battle had officially commenced. Cultivators from worlds below the Zizai immortal realm had no power to resist. They were directly obliterated. Those with higher cultivation levels hurriedly escaped back into the black holes, through which they returned to the celestial spirit great world. Taoist field of the beginningless. All disciples had gathered in Guan's courtyard, curious about the celestial phenomena above. Guan didn't say much. With a wave of his sleeve, the blue smoke above the artifact refining cauldron condensed rapidly, forming a large mirror that reflected the majestic sight of the battle court light path. An Exian Shenzhen celestial demon child and blood prison great saint looked up and were all stunned. On the trans-universal battle court light path, the crowd surged like a tide, the massive beings as large as mountains appearing even more fearsome. Along the end of the battle court light path, a terrifying huge shadow loomed in the deep darkness, revealing only its upper body as if carrying forward this vast light path single-handedly. The battle court light path in the hand of this huge shadow resembled a sword thrusting forward, a scene that shocked everyone's eyes. Celestial demon child couldn't help but turn her head to look at Guan and asked, "Master, who are they?" The others also turned to look at Guan. The usually loquacious blood prison great saint and LV Xian were also stunned. Facing such a force, they felt only apprehension in their hearts. Guan responded, "This is the battle court, a power from beyond the great thousand world." An Exian pressed further. "Why have they come?" The others were also puzzled, waiting for Guan to clarify. Guan did not conceal anything and revealed the grievances between the Long clan and the battle court. This grudge has lasted for many years. 20,000 years ago, there was an entity known as the Silent Destruction God Emperor, who also came for the descendants of the Long clan. Guan said calmly. Chen Chuan couldn't help but say, "To usurp their nest and to exterminate them. This lord of the battle court is really not anything good. And by the looks of it, they're likely aiming to take over the celestial spirit great world." The others also started cursing at the battle court. An Exian suddenly thought of something. She looked at Guan and timidly asked, "Master, you granted Longqing the Long surname, could it be?" As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. They all knew Longqing, who was personally taken in as a disciple by Guan. An Exian still remembered that Guan had previously refused to guide Longqing in cultivation, because Longqing carried a great cause and effect. Guan nodded and said, "Yes, Longqing is indeed a descendant of the Long clan." Everyone looked at each other after hearing this. Blood Prison Great Saint became excited and asked, "Master, will you take action?" The others also felt invigorated by this. They had practiced arduously in the dojo. The higher their realm, the more they revered Guan's cultivation level. They had always been curious about just how strong Guan was. Surely such a powerful battle court could force Guan to reveal all his strength? It is his destiny. Why should I intervene? Being able to adopt him, I already took a great risk. Guan shook his head and chuckled. The others didn't buy it. In their eyes, Guan would surely protect Longqing, just as he protected them. Jiang Shi lamented. Who knows how many years of cultivation it will take before I can qualify to participate in such a great battle. Scenes of battle appeared in the mirror atop the artifact refining cauldron. Endless cultivators from the celestial spirit great world surged out of the black holes, blocking the battle court's advancement. Today's celestial spirit great world was far beyond the previous era's celestial spirit great heaven and earth, with an astonishingly consolidated power. LV Xian, Chen Chuan, and others, seeing endless cultivators and demons entering the battle through the black holes, felt their blood boiling. Guan didn't immediately take action. He saw this calamity as a good thing, letting the beings of the Great Thousand World feel a sense of crisis. Moreover, this cause and effect had to be ended by the Long family themselves. Guan did not want to publicly tie himself with the Long family on the surface, waiting for Longqing to be overwhelmed before intervening. On the other side of heaven and earth, Longqing leaped up, flying towards the black hole in the sky. Candle Star transmitted to him saying, "Come with me, facing such a battle court, you have no chance of victory." Longqing did not respond to him, nor did he look back. Candle Star stood in front of the pavilion, opening his mouth, but he ultimately could not muster the courage to go forward and fight alongside Longqing. He knew full well the terror of the battle court, and crucially, the strength now displayed by the battle court was even more formidable than he had known. He sensed the determination of the battle court, vowing to completely annihilate the Long clan. Right in the celestial spirit great world, watching Longqing's figure disappear into the black hole, Longya looked at Long Tongue, anxiously asking, "Big brother, what exactly is father trying to do? Shouldn't we help him?" Long Tongue was about to speak when a sonorous voice echoed through the entire great heaven and earth. "Descendant of the Long clan, you have stood up, and indeed, you have not dishonored the bloodline of the Long clan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 575. Dharma aspect shocks the heavens. The sudden voice plunged the entire celestial spirit great world into silence, and all living beings felt their hearts chill just hearing it. They couldn't imagine what kind of existence could possess such an imposing aura. Candlestar looked up at the celestial vault, his expression somewhat bewildered as he murmured to himself, "Master." He understood that the Lord of the War Court used such terrifying power, not only targeting to execute Longqing, but mainly against the protector of the celestial spirit great world. Thinking of his master facing off against the fearsome being capable of annihilating a celestial spirit god, his emotions were complex. He also thought of the mythological beings of the war court, fearing that an unprecedented fierce battle was about to occur, one that would reduce the celestial spirit great world to ashes. He turned to look at his disciples gazing up at the celestial dome in the distance, and couldn't help but sigh. After so many years at the Supreme Sect, he had grown attached to this place, but no amount of attachment was worth more than life itself. He had already forsaken the war court, and in the face of such a situation, all he could do was flee. He withdrew his gaze and disappeared into thin air in front of the pavilion. Long Tongue, Longya, and the other cultivators around them hadn't expected him to flee. They thought he was going to support Longqing, so they didn't think too much of it. The heaven-supporting ancestor re-entered Yitsong's body. His voice echoed in Yitsong's mind. "There are many presences within the war court that are beyond my match. In the face of such a massive invasion, the celestial spirit great world stands no chance of winning. Candlestar has already fled, and you should leave as well." Upon hearing this, Yitsong furrowed his brow, his gaze fixed on the black hole above. On the other side of heaven and earth, with the mountains undulating, Baisheng stepped out of the forest and stood on the hillside, gazing at the spectacular phenomenon in the sky, his brow furrowed deeply, his eyes full of shock. This was the second time in his life that his understanding had been overturned. Su Jin arrived at his side, equally shocked as she looked up at the celestial vault. Baisheng turned to look at her and asked, "What is this spectacle? How high is the realm of the person who just spoke? And what's the background of the Long clan?" Su Jin took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure, I can't even guess his realm. You see, I've lived for over 10,000 years, could be influential in the imperial dynasty, but in the grand scheme of the great world, am just an inconspicuous minor character. To many of the great powers, killing me would be as simple as crushing an insect. As for the Long clan, I have never heard of them either. My understanding of the great heaven and earth is not as extensive as you imagine." Baisheng couldn't help remarking, "It's indeed true that there are always higher beings. If one day, I can make a sound that resonates with all living beings across heaven and earth, then this life would have not been lived in vain." Sar the Ovalfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Su Jin rolled her eyes at him, said with irritation, "You always talk like you're giving your last words. Can't you think about diligently cultivating and pursuing longevity? Is there really such a thing as immortality in this world? Even if one ascends to immortality, as you said, there is still an end to it." "I don't care, you must aim for it anyway." They began to bicker, unaware that this was a calamity sweeping across the entire world. In the vast and boundless universe, myriad black holes of all sizes dotted the cosmos, acting like channels through time and space, with figures emerging from them. Feng Xian walked on the battle court light path, looking ahead at the looming great battle with a calm expression. The celestial spirit great world erupted in astonishing solidarity, as more and more figures rushed in to block the advance of the war court. Yet they did not slow down the pace of the war court's forces. Feng Xian didn't rush to take action. On this occasion he planned to do the bare minimum, and with the most terrifying existences yet to appear, he dared not act. "I am a descendant of the Long clan Longqing. This causality should be borne by me." Longqing's voice suddenly came, weak in the vast cosmos even though he shouted with all his might. Feng Xian caught the sound of Longqing, with the words Long clan, making it impossible for him to ignore. A pressure stronger than any of the combatants bore down, halting every living being engaged in the battle. A Taoist Zhongzizai immortal from the celestial spirit great world showed a look of horror, unable to move under this overwhelming pressure. His pupils suddenly dilated, and following his gaze, an imposing figure in the darkness behind the battle court light path gradually became clearer. Feng Xian's gaze, however, looked in the direction of Longqing's voice. Longqing stepped out from a black hole, his right hand raised to his chest, his two fingers together. While moving through the air with floating steps, he was casting divine skills. Streams of gray mist emerged from his body, coalescing into figures around him. Furthermore, the space in the surrounding universe twisted, spontaneously producing more gray mists that continued to solidify into humanoid shapes. More and more gazes fell upon Longqing, but no one from the war court side made a direct move against him. As Longqing, who was executing the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, looked into the distance, a giant shadow gradually became clear. It was a black-robed Taoist with a Qilin headdress and a stern face. He floated like a mirage behind the battle court light path, with his lower half seeming illusory, and only his upper half clearly visible. It was the Master of Candle Star, the current Lord of the War Court. His title was the Candle Celestial Monarch. The Candle Celestial Monarch was so immense that everything in the universe seemed trifling in his presence. And to the celestial spirit cultivators witnessing this figure, he appeared as the founding god who created the cosmos. As the Candle Celestial Monarch emerged from the darkness, everyone from the side of the celestial spirit great world, except Longqing, lost their courage and willingness to fight. It seemed as though the Candle Celestial Monarch had merely leaned forward. He looked down upon Longqing, observing the Dharma aspects coalescing behind him, with an indifferent gaze, and he said, "Has your esteemed self not shown yourself yet? Could it be that you have given up on the Long clan?" This question likewise echoed throughout the celestial spirit great world. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, an Xian and the others one by one turned their heads to look at Guan, holding the Cyan Hong sword, said, "Why look at me? Qing Er's divine skills are not simple. Perhaps he can resolve this on his own." As he spoke, he lifted the blade, his left hand supporting the edge, the tip pointing toward a mirror above the artifact refining cauldron, as if aiming at the candle's celestial monarch within it. Hearing this, though more confused, the crowd still turned their heads to look at the scene in the mirror. The world fell silent. All living beings waited for another voice to rise, but it never came. In the cosmic void, as the number of Dharma aspects behind Longqing grew, the expressions of the powerhouses from the war court changed. In less than 10 breaths' time, the number of Dharma aspects surrounding Longqing had exceeded 10,000, and one Dharma aspect, towering 10,000 zhang, radiated an aura of contempt for the universe, causing both celestial spirit cultivators and war court warriors to involuntarily fix their gaze on him. Long Yu. The voice of the candle's celestial monarch rose, as if murmuring softly. As soon as his voice fell, figures scattered apart, quickly surrounding Longqing and his Dharma aspects, each figure emanating an unrivaled aura, using their own powerful presence to seal off Longqing. Those celestial spirit cultivators who were suppressed by the candle's celestial monarch vanished into ash. Only cultivators far away survived, and those who had come forth from the black holes as reinforcements all stopped in their tracks, their attention entirely on Longqing. The Dharma aspects summoned by Longqing each radiated a brilliant light, converging into a sparkling region in the universe. Those dozen or so war court powerhouses were scattered around, as if enacting some kind of elusive formation to block the strong light emitted by the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Such a rich force of karma. To summon so many powerful Dharma aspects with such cultivation level, the Long clan is indeed extraordinary. If that's all there is, it's not worth us joining hands. Perhaps the existence behind him has already fled. No one can afford the karma of acting against a celestial god. This divine skill seems to utilize bloodline karma. The war court powerhouses discussed among themselves, completely disregarding Longqing. The distant candle's celestial monarch did the same. Whether it was despicable of what stood behind Longqing, or contempt for Longqing himself. Listening to the voices from all around, Longqing took a deep breath, his eyes sharpened, and his face began to crack open as blood seeped out. The gray aura around him suddenly turned into a bloody one, and an even more terrifying figure rapidly took shape, as if a giant stood up behind him, quickly growing larger, surpassing the Dharma aspect known as Long Yu by the candle's celestial monarch. Upon seeing this Dharma aspect figure, the eyes of the candle's celestial monarch suddenly changed. Kill him. The voice of the candle's celestial monarch rose, and as soon as the words were spoken, the war court powerhouses encircling Longqing all made their move, with the force of thunder. The terrifying pressure coming from all directions made Longqing feel as if he were being torn apart, yet he did not die. He looked up to see 100,000 zhang tall, blood-colored figure wielding a long spear with one hand, fending off the powerful mana coming at him from every direction. This blood-colored figure was clad in armor, his true face obscured, but he emanated an unrivaled and imperious aura. His appearance made everyone from the war court tense up. In the sea of people, Fang Xian's pupils trembled, and his heart was hit by a storm of shock. The cultivators of the celestial spirit great world were similarly dumbstruck. In that moment, even within the great heaven and earth, all living beings could see a blood-colored figure reflected in the celestial vault, towering high into the sky. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 576. Celestial Destruction God, Greater Cause and Effect. Looking at the blood-colored figure behind Longqing, everyone from the battle court was shocked, for the figure's aura was immensely powerful, especially the spear in its hand, which emanated an extremely dangerous aura that seemed capable of collapsing the entire universe. Amid countless Dharma aspects, the blood-colored figure stood like Mount Tai surveying the surrounding peaks, shocking even Longqing. In Longqing's mind, the strongest should have been Emperor Longxin. He had managed to manifest the figure of Emperor Longxin, which was that enormous figure. Yet Emperor Longxin appeared so weak in front of this blood-colored figure. After mastering the celestial dragon technique, Longqing dared not casually manifest his Dharma aspect, as he only had one chance. This was his first encounter with the blood-colored figure. Somehow, he knew the name of this figure. Longmia. Longqing had heard this name before, the grandson of Emperor Longxin, the son of Longjun. He had heard Longjun boast that Longmia possessed the strongest talent within the Long clan, but after seeing the figure of Emperor Longxin, he believed Emperor Longxin was the strongest. Today, he truly understood how terrifying the strongest figure of the Long clan could be. Longqing's skin continuously cracked open, and blood incessantly seeped out. He quickly turned into a bloody figure, but his eyes were so bright. With his own strength, Longmia demonstrated power that dominated the current battlefield against numerous strong members of the battle court. From afar, Candle Celestial Monarch watched Longmia, frowning deeply. 10 innate golden immortals actually couldn't destroy this Dharma aspect. What was the origin of this Dharma aspect? The innate golden immortals who were casting spells were equally shocked. Their power was enough to destroy the universe, but they concentrated their mana together, trying their best not to affect the heavenly Tao. Yet the existence they targeted would suffer a more intense impact. However, Longmai's Dharma aspect easily resisted their attacks. How could they remain calm? Longqing struggled to lift his right hand, and in an instant, the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect holding the spear pushed forward, vigorously repelling several innate golden immortals and causing airwaves that shook the battle court light path. Almost instantly, all Dharma aspects surged like arrows, rushing toward the battle court light path. Longqing was still performing the Celestial Dragon technique, continuously manifesting Dharma aspects and joining the battle, while the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect continued to guard behind Longqing. Everyone retreat. A great cultivator from the Tao court loudly commanded, and with someone leading, other hesitating cultivators quickly retreated to observe from a distance. The Long clan's Dharma aspects, like a grand army, swiftly advanced onto the battle court light path. As more and more battle court cultivators joined the fight, Feng Xian drew a sword, ready for battle, his gaze fixated on the blood-colored figure of Longmia, his heart filled with astonishment. A loose immortal could summon such a formidable entity. Was this the Long clan? He had always failed to understand why the upper ranks of the battle court insisted on completely annihilating the Long clan, but now he understood. Facing such an enemy, it was indeed necessary to eliminate them completely. However, another thought uncontrollably popped into his mind. How did these high-level individuals snatch the battle court from the Long clan? As Feng Xian was lost in thought, a sword light streaked over his head, powerfully colliding with space, striking the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, which still defended with the spear in its hand. Two formidable forces collided, creating shockwaves that caused distant celestial spirit cultivators watching the battle to vanish in smoke and dust, while cultivators from the battle court side were protected by a force of destiny, spared from disaster. From afar, an energy barrier enveloped the battle court light path, defending against all impacts. In Taoist field of the beginningless, within the courtyard, everyone intently stared at the artifact refining cauldron's mirror, watching the power standoff between Dragon Annihilation's Dharma aspect and Candle Celestial Monarch, secretly terrified at the immense power before them, where every existing being between the two seemed insignificant. Furthermore, Candle Celestial Monarch's aura could even reach into Celestial Spirit Great World. They were fine, protected by the dojo, but the outer environment trembled, a catastrophe for mortal spirits. An Xian involuntarily looked at Guan, noting her master was still calmly watching the battle, and she was puzzled. "Master, why aren't you taking action yet? This isn't like him, and moreover, this calamity originates from Qing'er. He certainly won't stand by idly." Could it be that Master has already planned a response? It must be so. Master is always like this, claiming indifference, yet always ends up intervening. With that thought, Anzin's confusion cleared, replaced by exhilaration. In her heart, her master had always possessed great compassion to protect all living beings, and she had witnessed it many times. Even if Master wanted to leave, he would just disguise his identity and hide in another part of the world, showing that at heart, Master couldn't sever his ties to this land. Guan stared at the image in the mirror, Hearing the thoughts of the crowd, especially those of an Xian, he felt both relieved and helpless. He was relieved that an Xian had always trusted him, but he felt helpless because his image in Nzin's mind was too great. Guan indeed had a strategy to cope. This calamity, originating from the grudge and karma of the Long clan, was different from previous calamities. It was a disaster of the Long family, triggered by his reincarnation body, and he would naturally resolve it. However, he would not do so as Guan, but as Long Zhan. In this calamity, he would not let the innocent die. The more evil the battle court behaved, the more it would provoke his desire to kill. His pupils flickered with a peculiar purple-golden flame. Have you already joined them? Guan stared at the dragon annihilation dharma aspect in the mirror, and muttered to himself. He felt the aura of the heavenly Tao emanating from the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. This aura was similar to that of the celestial spirit god, and the celestial extreme god. No wonder Long Mie could escape the karma of the Long clan. It turned out that a stronger force was shielding him from karma. But this time was different. Long Qing was using the karma from bloodlines, and as long as Long Mie did not change his physical body, the karma attached to the bloodline would still exist. Candle's celestial monarch, being in the late stage of innate golden immortal realm, and joined by 16 other innate golden immortals, was strangely unable to defeat the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Guan was curious about what cultivation level Long Mai's true self had reached now. Additionally, Guan noticed that these innate golden immortals had a different kind of destiny aura from the battle court. They originated from the battle court, but they bore the destiny of other forces, more intense. This meant these innate golden immortals had other backgrounds. It seemed there were other calculations behind this battle. Guan began to look forward to the appearance of the immortal emperor. As for getting involved in more trouble, Guan was not too concerned. This battle would certainly allow him to reap a tremendous lifespan, and perhaps after some time, he would break through to a higher realm. On the vast earth, countless fierce beasts were slaughtering each other. The ground split open, blood flowed into rivers, and corpses were countless. The fierce ground battle continued, but the celestial vault was extraordinarily bright, with stacked clouds making the celestial vault appear even more expansive. A towering figure clad in blood armor stood proudly among the clouds. His hands hung naturally, his shoulder armor resembled a dragon, and his white hair fluttered in the wind, with a blood flower mark on his forehead. His face was handsome, but his gaze was so indifferent. He looked down at the slaughter below, his expression unchanged, but the reflection of Long Qing employing the celestial dragon technique flickered in his pupils. His figure was identical to the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Next to him stood a long spear, the body of the spear covered in blood scales, the spearhead like the claw of a true dragon, its tip refracting a cold light. A figure leapt up and landed beside him. This was a cyan-robed Taoist, standing on a red gourd, bearing an air of immortality, and wearing a cynically amused smile. Celestial destruction god. Someone else is using your power again? How long will you protect them? The cyan-robed Taoist asked teasingly. Celestial destruction god's expression remained indifferent as he calmly said, "It's not exactly using, that's their own capability." The cyan-robed Taoist raised his hand and drew a circle in front of him, revealing an illusion reflecting the battle outside the celestial spirit great world. The dragon annihilation dharma aspect was so eye-catching. At its feet, a strong light gathered around Long Qing, who was continuously consolidating the dharma aspect. The continuous dharma aspect assaulted the battle court light path, with Candle's celestial monarch stepping over from above, continuously approaching the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Those 16 innate golden immortals surrounded the dragon annihilation dharma aspect, endlessly displaying divine skills and spells, shaking the entire universe. Sarthanelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The edges of the universe displayed twisting rainbows. The tremors were from the great Tao. So many innate golden immortals attacking a loose immortal, quite extravagant. Without your power, this guy would have died long ago. Does this still count as his capability? The cyan-robed Taoist asked, half smiling. celestial destruction god was silent for a moment before saying, "This is a divine skill called celestial dragon technique created by my grandfather. It gathers all those with bloodline karma through the bloodline, allowing them to form dharma aspects to fight on their behalf. This child has summoned so many dharma aspects, his lifespan will be exhausted. This is his last battle." Last battle? I doubt it. You always say this, yet you always end up intervening. Without your intervention, the Long clan would have perished long ago. The cyan-robed Taoist shook his head. To this, celestial destruction god did not respond. The cyan-robed Taoist continued. "It won't be long before you can break through and reach a higher realm. Your immortal position could be promoted, and if you could be transferred back to the 3,000 great worlds, you would be able to protect your descendants." The reflection of Candle's celestial monarch gleamed in celestial destruction god's eyes. His gaze so cold, he watched Candle's celestial monarch continuously destroying the celestial dragon dharma aspects, approaching his own dharma aspect. This time, fate might be hard to escape, with even stronger beings approaching, celestial destruction god solemnly said, pausing momentarily before adding, "No matter, with me here, the bloodline can continue. When I return, I will let these folks experience the most painful torment of the great Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 577. Ancestral Dragon War. The sword that cleaved the universe in the universe's void that constantly shimmered with bright light. The dragon annihilation dharma aspect wielded the gun shadow in its hand, blocking divine skills attacks from all directions, manifesting an unstoppable aura. More and more battle court powerhouses joined the surrounding attack, spreading out in different directions, beginning to form their formations with a majestic momentum. Above the head of the dragon annihilation dharma aspect, clouds of light tumbled, where dragon and phoenix phantoms intertwined, as if another dazzling heaven and earth were descending. As the number of battle court powerhouses involved in the battle soared, the aftermath grew rapidly stronger, with continuous black holes being annihilated, forcing celestial spirit cultivators to either flee back into black holes or retreat at full speed. The fleeing cultivators looked back, unable to conceal the horror on their faces. That person called Long Qing, who exactly is he? His cultivation level aura is clearly just a loose immortal. I've never heard of him, but the divine skills he's using are too terrifying. No wonder he has provoked so many powerful beings. So, in addition to chi absorption cultivation, cultivating divine skills can also lead to attainment. Since those guys are targeting that person called Long Qing, we indeed should not get involved. Today's battle has truly been an eye-opener for us. Within the great world, we swagger and dominate, but in outer heaven, there are far too many existences stronger than us. The celestial spirit cultivators discussed while fleeing. Today's battle they would never forget the name Long Qing. On the other side, the Candle celestial monarch had already arrived in front of the circle surrounded by innate golden immortals. He retrieved a golden pestle from his sleeves, which connected with 9 golden chains and had a silver-blue gem embedded at the bottom. As it shook, a strange power of the great Tao burst forth, causing all living beings in the universe to feel dizzy. Source: Web Novel. Com. Updated on Omicron New 0. Long Qing maintained the gesture of deploying the celestial dragon technique, his body covered in blood, with bare white bones faintly visible on his elbow and shoulder. Staring at the golden pestle in the hands of the Candle celestial monarch, Long Qing felt a strong sense of dread. And seeing that the other dharma aspects could not shake the battle court light path, he felt desolate. I have already exerted my full strength, even summoning the most powerful ancestors. Why am I still unable to overcome them? Long Qing fell into confusion. Before the battle, he had been full of confidence, determined to face death. But when he actually faced the battle court, only then did he realize why his clan met such fate. Just thinking of Long Tung, Long Ya, and other descendants, he felt unprecedented fear. He had not yet had the chance to sever the connections with his descendants. If he died, they would have to die too. Even the entire celestial spirit great world might be destroyed. Longqing's eyes filled with hatred. He would not allow such a thing to happen. Battle court. Longqing gritted his teeth and growled lowly. His blood energy surged, and the aura of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect suddenly increased. The candle celestial monarch noticed his anomaly, immediately swinging the golden pestle in his hand, with a burst of golden light accompanied by a scorching heatwave enveloping Longqing and the Dharma aspects. In an instant, countless Dharma aspects were successively annihilated, leaving only Longqing's skeleton, and his soul body also appeared. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect moved 1 foot backward, in a posture fully resisting. Outside the formation, all the battle court cultivators watched this scene, their faces showing frantic excitement. Feng Xian was also like this, staring at the golden pestle, his eyes burning hot. It was the battle court's treasure, known as the war god golden pestle, a treasure that all cultivators of the battle court yearned for. The war god golden pestle made the entire universe bright. Stars rapidly burned. Tao spiritual qi was burned into a hot mist. This golden light seemed capable of burning everything away. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect shook its arm. The gun shadow in its hand burst forth with terrifying blood energy, transforming into thousands of blood dragons, dispersing the vast golden light, rushing first to attack the candle celestial monarch. The candle celestial monarch's eyes turned cold. He leaped up, raising the war god golden pestle high and smashed it down towards the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect. His figure no less than the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, his high position giving him an incredibly terrifying aura. Sir the Ovalfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The figure of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect was reflected in the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world. And as the candle celestial monarch leaped above the head of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, his silhouette was also seen by the beings of the celestial spirit great world. This scene caused all living beings to tremble in fear, no matter where they were. Witnessing this scene, their eyelids jumped wildly. Bang! The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect raised its spear for a stab. The light cloud above was directly dispersed. Great magical power carrying a blood wind ascended, as if intending to pierce through the top of the universe. The candle celestial monarch held the war god golden pestle to block the blood wind. But only for a moment. The candle celestial monarch exploded with a sudden and violent storm of attacks, the war god golden pestle quickly swinging, and the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect similarly swung the gun shadow in its hand. Myriad illusions burst forth. As if 2 worlds were colliding. The earth and mountains shattered, ocean straits were destroyed, celestial beasts roared as they rushed towards each other, both vanishing into illusion. Various fantastical scenes unfolded, dazzling the observers. This was a collision of 2 Tao fruit worlds, a confrontation of the Tao. As the Tao generates all things, their every move contained myriad changes. The battle court cultivators watching were equally dumbfounded. Unable to approach, they were barely holding on maintaining the formation outside. Below the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, Longqing, with only his soul attached to his skeleton, still retained his will. He could no longer see clearly what was around him. Everything in his eyes was shaking, his vision increasingly blurry. He struggled to think of his children, but his will was pulled down by an unprecedented heaviness. Just as he was about to despair, he instinctively thought of a figure. Master. Above the sea of clouds, the celestial destruction god and the cyan-robed Taoist were still watching the battle in the illusion. The cyan-robed Taoist clicked his tongue in wonder. He's about to give in. Your Dharma aspect is dispersing. Following his gaze, although the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect in the illusion was still maintaining its attack, the blood light on its body was dimming. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 577. Ancestral Dragon War. The sword that cleaved the universe. _2 The celestial destruction god did not make a sound, but the coldness in his eyes grew more intense. Descendant, is this all you can achieve? *. The celestial destruction god pondered silently. Although he spoke of protecting the Long family if he was present, he understood in his heart that if Long Qing's lineage perished, the Long clan would cease to exist. After attaining the immortal class, he severed his ties with the mortal world. The reason he continued to protect his descendants was merely due to a fixation in his heart. He was unwilling to see the Long clan meet such a fate, but unfortunately, he could not personally aid the Long clan. At that moment, a brilliant light burst forth in the apparition, erupting from the feet of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, or rather, it was Long Qing who was radiating the light. Long Qing's soul body shone with an exceptionally bright white light. His flesh began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his will was also being restored. He was still thinking of his mentor, when he suddenly felt a miraculous power burst from the depths of his soul body, different from the pain induced by the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. This power made him feel extremely comfortable, sweeping away his pain and fatigue. The candle's celestial monarch seemed to sense it, and quickly retreated. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect also stopped its actions. The 16 innate golden immortals presiding over the grand formation felt immense pressure, an invisible force pushing them back. They widened their eyes, their gaze fixed on Long Qing. Numerous cultivators from the battle court also looked towards Long Qing. Everyone watched as the intense light on Long Qing's body began to condense into a figure. This figure rapidly grew taller. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect disintegrated, transforming into an endless stream of blood energy that surrounded this new Dharma aspect. The blood energy quickly faded from red. Feng Xian watched this figure rapidly rise, his heart pounding wildly. His intuition told him that the terrifying presence he feared most was about to reveal itself. Because the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect was reflected in the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world. All living beings could see the new Dharma aspect. This new Dharma aspect shone with white light all over, quickly growing to the same size as the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect. Compared to the destructive aura of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, the aura of this Dharma aspect was even more vast and majestic, as if it hailed from the source of time, overlooking all transformations on the great Tao, within the Taoist field of the beginningless. An Xian, celestial demon child, and others watched more clearly through the mirror on the artifact refining cauldron. They all turned their heads to look at Guan, their expressions peculiar. Xian couldn't hold back and was the first to ask, "Master, isn't that Dharma aspect you?" The Dharma aspect condensing from Long Qing was in the form of Long Zhan. Although the attire's outline was different from Guan's, the posture and facial features were extremely similar to Guan. And how could it be such a coincidence? Long Qing was also Guan's disciple. Wasn't it said that the celestial dragon Dharma aspect could only summon his ancestors? Xinjin murmured. Her voice was light, but in everyone's ears it was like a thunderclap. Could Guan be Long Qing's ancestor? The blood prison great saint's eyes lit up, and he instantly believed it. Following Guan for so many years, seeing countless orphans, he had never seen Guan taken anyone else, and he had long noticed how much Long Qing resembled Guan. Guan remained calm, still staring at the mirror, merely having sheathed the Cyan Hong sword into its scabbard. Seeing that he was unwilling to speak, everyone could only refocus their gaze on the mirror. When the Dharma aspect on Long Qing thoroughly solidified, the terrifying pressure enveloping the celestial spirit great world rapidly dissipated, and all living beings breathed a sigh of relief. On the edge of the Taitsong continent, the waves crashed against the shore. Liya stood on the edge of a cliff, looking up at the celestial vault, his pupils trembling. Junior brother Gu. Liya did not know the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, but he immediately recognized that the Dharma aspect resembled Gu, and junior brother Gu had saved the world once again, so junior brother Gu had never left. At this moment, Liya felt a strong fighting spirit arise. Junior brother Gu had not left, so he could not leave either. He resolved to stay in the celestial spirit great world, to protect all living beings. As for Zhang Buku, he had no leads to search for, so he decided it would be better to find them after attaining the Tao. Elsewhere, Baisheng looked up at the towering Dharma aspect, his expression peculiar. For some reason, he found this figure somewhat familiar. Sujin, however, did not think too much about it. Guan had not left a profound impression in her memory. She had disliked Guan from the beginning, and naturally would not hold him in her heart. On the other side of the human world, on a barren plain, a man wrapped in a large robe walked through the wind and sand. He looked up and saw the massive Dharma aspect on the celestial vault. A look of shock appeared on his weathered face, but it quickly gave way to a smile. Guan, you're indeed still here. Martial resolution murmured to himself, then bowed his head, continuing to move forward against the wind and sand. Having glimpsed Guan, his heart was completely at ease. The heavens would not collapse, and he could continue pursuing his destiny. The gaze of all living beings was focused on Guan's Dharma aspect. Aside from Guan's old acquaintances, the multitude of beings felt hope. At the first sight of this Dharma aspect, all beings felt a profound peace. This feeling was peculiar, yet it truly existed. Longqing slowly raised his head to look, and then stood there dumbfounded. After 2 breaths' time, he suddenly turned around and soared into the air. When he arrived in front of the Dharma aspect, he was completely stunned. A name surfaced in his mind. Longzhan. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He had heard of Longzhan's name, the true primordial ancestor of the Long clan, the ancient existence that truly established the battle court, while Emperor Longqing merely inherited his legacy. He had actually summoned the primordial ancestor. But that wasn't the most crucial part. What shocked him was how much the primordial ancestor's face resembled his mentor's. No, it wasn't just a resemblance. It was his mentor. Suddenly he realized, and all his doubts were dispelled. Why did his mentor choose to adopt him? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 577. Ancestral Dragon War. The sword that cleaved the universe. _3 Master. Why do you want to help him fight against the silent destruction god Emperor? He suddenly became excited, enveloped by a huge surprise, trembling all over. The Long clan actually has such an ancestor. The voice of Candle's celestial monarch came through, filled with emotion. Just the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect alone was troublesome enough for him. And now the emergence of an even more daunting Dharma aspect gave him a chilling sense of an unbeatable adversary. He trusted his intuition. Master, it's time for you to make a move. The voice of Candle's celestial monarch rose again, teasing in tone. All the cultivators of the battle court looked towards Candle's celestial monarch, almost every one of them showing a bit of astonishment. In the hearts of the vast majority of battle court cultivators, Candle's celestial monarch was the strongest, and they had not expected him to have brought along his master. The master of the Lord of the War Court. Could it be that ancient myth? As Candle's celestial monarch's words fell, a gigantic pair of eyes suddenly appeared in the darkness of the void behind him, looming over the entire battlefield. The stature of Candle's celestial monarch was colossal, taller than any mountain in the world. Yet before these eyes, he was less significant than their pupils. Faced with these eyes, every creature felt panic. The celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world also revealed these eyes, causing all beings to tremble with fear, unable to comprehend what the heavens and the earth were facing. They could only focus on Guan's Dharma aspect. Perhaps this mysterious existence could protect them. Longqing turned around, and was equally frightened by the silhouette behind Candle's celestial monarch. What kind of eyes were those? He had lived for 20,000 years and, with the experiences of his previous life, had never seen such terrifying eyes, like the abyss of the universe, hiding the utmost horror and despair. He is not the person I am looking for, he is just an effect and cause Dharma aspect. A voice of cold indifference echoed through the universe, audible to all the myriad beings of the great thousand world. Each word trembled the hearts of all beings, as if the supreme heavenly Tao was declaring the laws of heaven. Candle's celestial monarch was about to speak, but another voice interrupted his thoughts. The one you seek may well be me. All the cultivators of the battle court turned their heads in unison. including the innate golden immortals, and even those celestial spirit cultivators watching from the distant void. The voice came from the Dharma aspect behind Longqing. Longqing turned and clenched his excited fists tightly. That was his master's voice. His master was his primordial ancestor, ancestral dragon war. This fact did not cause him to crumble. Rather, he felt fortunate. The person he most revered was his ancestor. It felt like a dream. Guan's Dharma aspect lifted his right hand. A myriad of silver lights appeared in his palm, quickly converging into a sword. The moment he grasped the sword, Guan's voice rang out again. Break! Ping! Space shattered like a mirror. All beings were frozen in place, including the innate golden immortals, unable to move. They saw a dense expanse of spatial fragments before them, where a more majestic figure appeared behind Candle's celestial monarch. It was a man in a white robe, with yellow, withered hair longer than his robe. His face shriveled like skin stretched over bone, his eye sockets deep set. The entirety of his appearance was shockingly terrifying. It was the Immortal Emperor. The Immortal Emperor's face showed astonishment. Longqing, too, was startled by the sudden appearance of the Immortal Emperor. Then his attention was caught by the sword light. Glancing inadvertently, he saw a silver blade, spanning longer than the heavens and the earth, slash before him, as if a mythological celestial river had appeared. Sar the Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. That was the sword in Guan's Dharma aspect's hand. Longqing couldn't move. He could not even hear any sound. Not just him. All beings had lost their hearing, unable to act, merely witnessing the Dharma aspect raising his sword to strike at Candle's celestial monarch and the Immortal Emperor. All the cultivators of the battle court were plunged into extreme terror, because they realized that Candle's celestial monarch and the being behind him also could not move, as if waiting to be beheaded by the enemy. With one slash from Guan, the sword light burst forth, too fast for even the vision of innate golden immortals to fully capture. The universe seemed split in two by it, a sight profoundly awe-inspiring. In an instant, Candle's celestial monarch was reduced to ash. The Immortal Emperor slashed by the sword light, eyes widening in shock. Space busted once more. The shattered fragments quickly dispersing as though illusions striking the senses of all beings. Before they could react, a roar of outrage erupted. Upon uttering just one word, the Immortal Emperor's flesh erupted in 1,000 sword lights, followed by annihilation, becoming dust, gone from existence. The entire universe fell into silence for a moment. The sword light that had bisected the universe still hung in the air, as the cultivators who regained their senses looked towards both ends to discover they could not see the end of the sword light, as if the entire universe was indeed cut in half by it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 578. Reverse Cause and Effect. Annihilate Battle Court. Candle's celestial monarch, Immortal Emperor extinguished. All the cultivators from the battle court were unable to accept this reality, and they all stared blankly at the sword light spanning the universe. They could not move, the scene before them sending chills down their spines, driving them to despair. Feng Xian stood in the void, his eyes wide open, the universe trembling in his eyes. His heartbeat was so intense. It's over. Feng Xian fell into an abyss of despair. Since entering this universe, he had speculated that the battle court might fail. But he never imagined that Candle's celestial monarch and Immortal Emperor would be so powerless to defend themselves. Just who was that divine figure? How high was their cultivation level? Feng Xian glanced at the dragon battle Dharma aspect on Longqing's body, filled with shock. All beings in the universe looked toward the dragon battle Dharma aspect with disbelief in their eyes. And although the beings in the celestial spirit great world didn't know the specifics of the battle, the disappearance of those mysterious giant eyes gave rise to hopes in their hearts. Could it be a victory? Longqing had seen his master win many times before, but each victory still scared him. Just how profound was his master's Tao practice? It felt like no matter how strong the opponent, they were effortlessly defeated before his master. Karma retribution, no one can escape it. Today the battle court sought to exterminate my Long clan. I will exterminate the battle court in return. With but a single swing of my sword, life and death are your own fate. You should all feel fortunate, for if you faced the battle court, you wouldn't even have a chance to live. The voice of Guan rang out once more, plunging all the battle court cultivators into the depths of despair. Without giving them time to think, the dragon battle Dharma aspect lifted its sword and slashed horizontally. A sword light swept across all directions, passing over the battle court light path, over the battle court cultivators surrounding Long Qing. 16 innate golden immortals turned to ash first. The other cultivators met the same end. Long Qing looked around to see the spectacle of enemies being extinguished everywhere, a sight tremendously grand. At the same time, inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, prompts kept popping up before Guan. You have successfully stolen 309,872,265 years of lifespan from Jinren Chenyang, early stage of innate golden immortal realm. You have successfully stolen 870,928,711 years of lifespan from Xingxing Dao, middle stage of innate golden immortal realm. You have successfully stolen 1,087,249,720 years of lifespan from Yi Yuelan, early stage of innate golden immortal realm. Watching the prompts before his eyes, the corners of Gu An's mouth curled up. The strength of the dragon battle Dharma aspect was not solely attributed to the profound mysteries of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, but also to Gu An's own power. After all, he intended to steal lifespan, so he poured his own power into the dragon battle Dharma aspect to make the strike through it. An Xian Lv Xian, and others turned their heads toward Guan, seeing him with a slight smile. Everyone could feel his triumphant spirit. People couldn't help but reveal looks of adoration and fervor. Blood Prison Great Saint even couldn't help but shout in excitement, breaking the silence of the courtyard. My heavens! One sword strike to annihilate the battle court? Master! What swordsmanship was that just now? Master, exactly who are you within the Long clan? That's just inconceivable. The person who appeared just now seemed so terrifying, yet they couldn't withstand a single strike from the master. Guan didn't respond. He was immersed in the joy brought about by the surge in his lifespan. The dragon battle Dharma aspect with a single strike exterminated 70% of the beings of the battle court, leaving the 30% who harbored no karmic enmity with the Long clan. These beings, terrified out of their wits, would also leave the battle court in the future. This was the way of cause and effect. Through karmic deduction, Guan knew which people could be spared. In doing so, he could also seem less bloodthirsty, thereby concealing his ability to take lifespan. But soon Guan noticed something was amiss. Many of the deceased battle court cultivators had not brought him lifespan, but those 16 innate golden immortals had brought him over 800 billion years of lifespan. This time, you cannot escape. The battle court must be eradicated. Guan thought silently, his eyes transforming, turning into the immortal emperor's eye. Everyone in the courtyard saw the change in Gu An's eyes, and they all stopped their discussions, curiously watching him. Let all beings treat it as if it were just a dream. Gu An's voice sounded, and the immortal emperor's eye burst forth with a peculiar purple light, illuminating the faces of everyone in the courtyard. All beings between heaven and earth were like this, their vision of the world shrouded in purple light. This purple light burst forth from the celestial spirit Great World, and swept across the entire cosmos. This was the first time Guan used his immortal emperor's eye divine power. The immortal emperor's eye would cultivate different divine powers in different people, and Gu An's divine power was different from that of the eternal great emperor. His divine power could reverse the way of cause and effect. He could restore lost lives and vanished fortunes within a short time to their original state, and use this divine power to make what should have existed cease to exist, erasing their cause and effect without leaving a trace within the Tao rules. Using this divine power would not change time or space. Guan used the immortal emperor's eye divine power to revive the celestial spirits who had previously died in battle. On the battle court side, only one person was resurrected from death, but before that person could react, they were extinguished anew. After this test, Guan confirmed that this divine power could not bring him repeated lifespans. Although he had some regrets, Guan was already very satisfied. Everyone in the courtyard only felt their divine souls turned upside down, their consciousness blurry, as if they were about to fall into a dream. It was not just them. All beings within the cosmic void felt the same. One by one, beings who had already died began to come back to life. After regaining vitality, they did not open their eyes but instead stayed in place with their eyes closed. The cosmic void fell into silence as the sword light cut by the dragon battle Dharma aspect gradually dissipated. Longqing's consciousness also sank into darkness. Already exhausted, he relaxed and immediately fell into a dream. He dreamt that he was back in the third medicine valley. The weather was clear, the sun bright, and the disciples were coming and going with their labor. The sight brought a smile to his face. Indeed, a peaceful life suited him better. Longqing remembered the previous great battle, and his smile grew even brighter. Am I already dead? Longqing murmured to himself. Everything around him was so beautiful, too good to be true that he thought he was going to die, that this was a pre-death fantasy. Using the celestial dragon Dharma aspect meant sacrificing himself, and he had been prepared for this, so he was not panicked. Thinking of his master's strength excited him. His master turned out to be his primordial ancestor, which made him worry even less. Once he died, his master would surely take care of his descendants. He knew his master well. Despite speaking harshly, his master was softer-hearted than most people in the world. Dying is not so easy. A voice came from behind Longqing, startling him into quickly turning around to see Guan approaching. He was surprised and bowed in greeting immediately. CTH Novelfire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. When Guan reached him, he said with a wry smile, "Teacher, primordial ancestor, I used the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, and after using it, I must die." Guan looked at him and said, "Although the celestial dragon Dharma aspect was created by Long Xian, this divine power originates from my own celestial dragon reincarnation Dharma aspect. I can let you live, but from now on you must never use the celestial dragon Dharma aspect again, or you will suffer from karma retribution, and even I won't be able to save you." These words were true. He saved Longqing by using the power of cause and effect. After hearing this, Longqing was overjoyed and knelt down to thank Guan. Guan didn't stop him. Looking down at him, he said, "When I was Long Zhan, I was killed by someone. Even after I obtained cultivation far surpassing my killer, I did not seek revenge, for I thought Long Zhan deserved to die. From now on, with no battle court to threaten the Long clan, your descendants can start over, but make sure not to take the wrong path, or I will personally exterminate the Long clan." Longqing looked up and hurriedly promised, "I will not disappoint you." Guan spoke with deep seriousness. Having ended the fate and grudges, the Long clan should also atone for their past mistakes. As for how, that's up to you. After speaking, Guan turned and left. Longqing stood up and asked, "Primordial ancestor, where are you going?" Without turning back, Guan replied, "To utterly annihilate the battle court, so it ceases to exist." As his voice fell, Guan's figure disappeared. Longqing stared in the direction of his departure, struggling to remain calm. I really should think about what goals I should work towards in the future. Longqing thought of the words Guan said to him when Yitsong forced his way into the Supreme Sect. After the excitement, a sense of guilt surged in his heart. Always having the elder clean up after him. When would he be able to repay his teacher? No, to repay his primordial ancestor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 579. Abyss Dao Si, Annihilation of the Battle Court. Above the clouds, the celestial destruction god and the cyan-robed Taoist gazed at the illusion before them, remaining silent for a long time. The cyan-robed Taoist took a deep breath, turned his head toward the celestial destruction god, and asked, "Does your Long family still have such remarkable figures?" The celestial destruction god's expression grew even more complex, his heart filled with mixed emotions. He had never met Long Zhan, which meant the latter had died before he was born. He thought of the ancestors his father had mentioned. When he had first displayed his talent, his father had said it was a family trait, all stemming from the ancestor Long Zhan. However, since the ancestor Long Zhan had died shortly after surpassing the 9 heavens of the immortal path, he had never been considered strong in his eyes. Having seen him today, he felt that even if he faced him in person, he would not be his match, which was beyond his comprehension. Could it be that the ancestor Long Zhan had faked his death, and the fortune he now enjoyed was due to Long Zhan's protection from beyond? The more the celestial destruction god thought about it, the more confused he became. The cyan-robed Taoist clicked his tongue in wonder. Speaking of which, the Tao rules there are so perfect, it must be the great thousand world. How could such a grand battle not alarm the celestial gods? Could it be that the celestial gods of that realm have met with disaster? If that is indeed the case, then it's likely they died at the hands of. Before he could finish his sentence, the celestial destruction god's cold gaze fell upon him. The cyan-robed Taoist chuckled and did not continue. He waved his hand to dissipate the illusion before them, and then looked down at the ground below, lamenting. The slaughter over there has ended, but the killing here is endless. The celestial destruction god also looked down, his expression returning to its previous indifference. In a bright palace, above was a sea of clouds and below the ground mist tumbled. The immortal emperor jolted awake, sitting on his throne, gasping for air with bloodshot eyes. Behind his throne floated a massive silvery white meteor, pitted and scarred, but surrounded by streams of gray mist that seemed to follow some mysterious pattern, utterly bizarre. The immortal emperor looked up, his eyes filled with shock and fury. Who exactly are you? The immortal emperor had expected failure, but he had not anticipated the gap between that person and himself to be so vast. The thought that all 16 of his innate golden immortal disciples had died made his heart bleed. He stood up and turned to the meteor behind the throne, his eyes seething with indignation. Didn't you say that person was just a heaven-balancing golden immortal? Why couldn't I even withstand one of his moves? The immortal emperor demanded in a deep voice, his tone barely concealing his murderous intent. The mist around the meteor quickened its pace, and a cold voice emerged. I miscalculated. Miscalculated? My 16 disciples, having no destiny with the battle court, died utterly, and 7 among them had supreme potential for the abyss Tao Sea. Compared to me, they were still so young, to die in that great thousand world. Do you understand what that means to me? The immortal emperor spoke through gritted teeth, a gray mist more ominous than that surrounding the meteor emanating from his body, like blazing flames. It's not like I forced you. You were drawn in by the treasures of the immortal palace. Weren't you? The icy voice sounded again. You. Just as the immortal emperor was about to continue, a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder, freezing his expression. Before he could turn his head, the hand on his shoulder squeezed forcefully, turning him into ashes, as the figure of Guan appeared. You have successfully seized 18,208,547 years of lifespan from the immortal emperor, late stage of heaven-balancing golden immortal realm. Guan looked disdainfully at the notification that popped up before him. Not even as much as the lifespan of an innate golden immortal. The seized lifespan was about 1/10 of the victim's remaining lifespan, meaning the immortal emperor could have lived another 1 to 200 million years. Named immortal, it signified he had lived an exceedingly long age. Perhaps it was precisely because he sensed his time running out that the immortal emperor had not even as much lifetime left as the smallest part of the lifespans of those 7 innate golden immortals. Those 7 innate golden immortals had brought Guan more than 700 billion years of lifespan, meaning each of these 7 had at least 100 billion years of lifespan. According to Guan's observations, an innate golden immortal should have a lifespan ranging from 5 trillion years. Guan's thoughts flashed by in an instant as he looked unflinchingly at the silvery white meteor before him. Who exactly are you to find this place? Have you reached the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm? The previously cold voice speaking to the immortal emperor resonated once more, this time with a tinge of nervousness. Guan slowly raised his right hand, forming a claw. and pulled a figure out from within the meteor, his throat smashing against Guan's palm. This was an elder wearing a gray robe, his face gaunt, his white hair tied back, more presentable than the immortal emperor. But the terror on his face made him appear disheveled and weak before Guan. Fellow Taoist, let's talk this out. The gray-cloaked elder gritted his teeth and said, I hail from the abyss Tao Si. If I were to die, they will surely notice. You, hiding in the great thousand world, wouldn't want to tangle with more trouble, would you? From the moment Guan entered the hall, he realized he couldn't move, which filled him with indescribable panic. He couldn't understand how Guan had found this place. Jinren and Hai, late stage of Hengtian Golden Immortal Realm Perfection 49,802,308,928, 702/50, 000, 000, 000, 000, 000/50, 000, 000, 000, 5 trillion years lifespan. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. That is to say, the lifespan of a heaven-balancing golden immortal ranged from 5 trillion to 50 trillion years. Too bad, yet another one close to his life's end. It's true, who would risk everything unless they felt their limit approaching? Guan couldn't be bothered to communicate with Jinren and Hai. His eyes suddenly changed. This time it wasn't the immortal emperor's divine power, but the calamity absolute I. He was going to search Jinren and Hai's soul. In an instant, Jinren and Hai's eyes lost their luster. The hall then fell into silence. Guan rudely probed Jinren and Hai's memory, completely disregarding his soul. And during this process, calamity slowly began to latch onto Jinren and Hai's body. Jinren and Hai came from the abyss Tao Si, and had a not insignificant friendship with the immortal emperor. 10,000 years ago, Jinren and Hai was a guest at the battle court when he accidentally heard Candle's celestial monarch complaining to the immortal emperor about the resurgence of remnants from the Long clan, who had killed a being known as the Silent Destruction God Emperor. Learning that people from the Long clan were in the celestial spirit great world, and that the shattered celestial spirit great world was beginning to reshape itself, he thought of the treasure of the immortal palace. The celestial spirit immortal venerable, who established the celestial spirit great world, stole the treasure of the immortal palace. By decree of the celestial court, they ordered the celestial spirit god to execute him, but the celestial spirit god did not obliterate the celestial spirit great world. Thus, rumors suggested the treasure of the immortal palace might still be hidden within the celestial spirit great world, and the celestial spirit god was waiting for this treasure. As for informing the celestial court, that would not be possible. The celestial court snubbed contact with the great thousand world, and even a powerful being like Jinren and Hai had only ever encountered the guardians, the celestial gods, of the great thousand world. Every celestial god was arrogant, looking down on mortal spirits. Without obtaining the celestial Tao immortal position, even if one's cultivation level was higher than a celestial god, they would be disregarded. And ordinary people would not dare to provoke a celestial god. The celestial gods had the supreme celestial court standing behind them, an existence beyond provocation. The so-called immortal palace was also a palace belonging to the celestial court. How the news of the immortal palace's treasure was leaked was something Jinren and Hai had no idea about. He only knew the clues to the immortal palace's treasure. The celestial spirit immortal venerable had already perished, but the whereabouts of the immortal palace's treasure remained unknown. Guan surmised that the celestial spirit immortal venerable had left the immortal palace's treasure to Anhao. Although Anhao had perished, he was a being born of the destiny fostered by heaven and earth, destined to be reborn one day. However, at that time, he might no longer be Anhao, but become someone else. Guan was quite interested in the abyss Tao Si, having encountered this place when he had chosen to break through his lifespan. In Jinren and Hai's memory, the abyss Tao Si did not belong to the great thousand world, but lay in a mysterious region beyond it, an ocean formed by the Tao rules, boundless and vast. It was said that since its birth, the abyss Tao Si had been expanding infinitely, and had not stopped until now. Even Jinren and Hai, who was born from the abyss Tao Si, did not know its full extent. As Guan was searching Jinren and Hai's memory, a series of footsteps could be heard. The hall was vast, and at the far end, a strong light was visible. Candle's celestial monarch stepped out from the brilliance, his figure flickering rapidly as he advanced toward Guan suddenly. He stopped walking, frowning as he looked at Guan's back figure. Guan's attire was different from the dragon battle Dharma aspect, so he didn't recognize him immediately. He didn't even associate Guan with the dragon battle Dharma aspect, considering how far this place was from the celestial spirit great world. How could the one who killed him come back to life faster than him, when he had just been resurrected? Who are you? Candle's celestial monarch frowned and asked. Although the immortal emperor was often in seclusion, he always received fellow Taoists, and the immortal emperor's disciples were numerous too. His divine sense couldn't come close to Guan, and he couldn't see the scene in front of Guan. Guan slowly turned around. And it was then that Candle's celestial monarch saw the person Guan was holding in his hand. Candle's celestial monarch's pupils contracted sharply, instinctively drawing out the war god golden pestle. He remembered Jinren and Hai, an ancient presence, whom the immortal emperor treated with notable respect, leaving a deep impression on him. You, Candle's celestial monarch wanted to ask more, but Guan spat out a word, interrupting him. Die. Candle's celestial monarch's eyes widened, and he instantly turned into a mist of blood. Longevity, true words. This was Guan's Tao fruit divine power. Using the power of cause and effect to determine Candle's celestial monarch's death, possessing the subtlety of speaking and making it so. Following that, the Jinren and Hai in Guan's hands also turned to ash, and his gaze shifted to the outside of the hall. Numerous palaces entered his view. Countless marvelous sights and mythical beasts were taken in by his eyes. The colossal entities that dominated many universes were about to become illusory in Guan's eyes. Everything that belongs to Longzhan should come to an end. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 580. Descending into the Abyss. Dao Sea Battle Court, as a transcendent power above the Great Thousand World, had countless creatures under its command, many of whom were compelled to serve. Guan even saw numerous races enslaved, mining cultivation resources for Battle Court. He stood in the Grand Hall of the Immortal Emperor, and drew the Cyan Hong sword from his waist. Although the Cyan Hong sword was just an ordinary treasure sword, it was his favorite because it was a gift from Yilan. He swung the sword forward casually, effortlessly, yet with that very strike, he severed the destiny of Battle Court. He began to eradicate those creatures of the Long clan who harbored resentment, using the power of karma. He simply needed to calculate who would target the Long clan afterwards. In addition to these, Guan also dealt with those Battle Court creatures who had committed excessive killings. The number of creatures under Battle Court was vast, and to kill them all would undoubtedly bring great trouble, especially if it provoked the Celestial Court. Although Guan's Tao practice was profound, he was yet unable to deduce the karma of Celestial Court. With the power of karma, the enemy was killed invisibly. As the destiny of Battle Court collapsed, palaces, cities, and towers standing in the starry sky began to crumble. Many creatures tried to flee, but their vision blurred, and their consciousness plunged into darkness. They died, their Tao perished. The disaster came so suddenly that all the deceased had no time to react. Those cultivators who had just been revived through the destiny of Battle Court were still discussing the terrifying nature of the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect when they perished in succession. Those cultivators who died later suffered the most, despair assaulting their spirits. They were helpless and could only wait. A loud uproar erupted from Battle Court, but soon, the noise disappeared. The universe gradually darkened, heralding the quiet death of a massive entity born from the Tao rules. Fu! Feng Xian suddenly opened his eyes, panting heavily, covered in sweat, his bloodshot eyes filled with fear. He sat up and turned his head, finding himself in a desolate mountain. The sparse spiritual energy here made him instantly realize this was a mortal realm. Am I not dead? Feng Xian was overjoyed. If he had died and was now revived, he should have been inside Battle Court. This meant his adversary had spared him a path to life. Even if he could revive inside Battle Court, Feng Xian did not want to die, as it would diminish his cultivation level and destiny. Thinking of the heavy losses in Battle Court, Feng Xian felt that its vital energy was severely damaged, and it might face attacks from other enemies later on. Battle Court no return. Feng Xian felt that the terrifying entity from the celestial spirit Great World would continue to retaliate against Battle Court. He stood up, the sunlight falling on him, giving him a feeling of rebirth. The higher-ups of Battle Court are too foolish to provoke such beings. I need to seek a new way to survive, Feng Xian murmured to himself, still shivering from the thought of the previous battle. He dared not be an enemy of that terrifying entity any longer, hoping only to be as far from it as possible. He leaped toward a direction, soaring through the sky like a startled swan, disappearing in an instant. Daoist Field of the Beginningless. In the courtyard, Guan stood before an artifact refining cauldron observing the Dao treasures inside. Celestial Demon Child stood by his side, curiously watching him. Half a month had passed since the destruction of Battle Court. All beings felt as if they had dreamt it all. After this calamity, the various sects of the celestial spirit Great World felt pressure, and no longer acted so carelessly. The whole world initiated a trend of seclusion. Master, is Battle Court truly extinct? Celestial Demon Child couldn't help asking. Guan casually responded, whether it's extinct or not, what does it have to do with you? Focus on your cultivation. The cultivators outside are now striving harder than ever. He thought about breaking through. After this battle, it was time for him to break through. He brought up his attribute panel to take a look. Saw the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 22098/831-008, 678, 146. Physique: Primordial Reincarnation Undying Body. Cultivation level: Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm Perfection. 8,300,000,000,000 years of lifespan. This battle had increased his lifespan by 6,700,000,000,000 years, surpassing 20,000 years of labor. Not only that, but he had also scoured many treasures from the Battle Court. He planned to distribute half into the celestial spirit Great World as opportunities for all beings. To eliminate the grudges for the Long Clan, he had wiped out all beings within the Battle Court that could potentially threaten the Long Clan. The number was vast, stirring emotions within him. Though the beings of the Battle Court hadn't been annihilated, from now on, the Battle Court would be no more. Guan could feel many strong forces of cause and effect approaching the celestial spirit Great World, mostly out of curiosity. The destruction of the Battle Court ultimately drew the attention of many powerful forces. I will work hard to cultivate, but I don't know how many years it will take to reach the Zizai Immortal Realm. The more I cultivate, the more I feel the gap between us. How many years have you lived exactly? The celestial demon child asked wistfully, a frequent topic of private discussion among them. Everyone felt that when they met Guan, he already possessed his current strength, as they had never seen him in disarray. Not to mention disarray, they had never even seen Guan look anxious. With such an invincible cultivation level, it was indeed difficult to be nervous. Guan turned to look at the celestial demon child, and rubbed her head without saying anything. He merely answered in his heart. Actually, I'm not much older than you. The celestial demon child continued chattering. She seemed to have an endless stream of questions to ask. As long as it didn't involve his own cultivation level, Guan would answer patiently. His mind, however, was already drifting to breakthroughs. 8,300,000,000,000 years of lifespan. Should that be enough for him to break through to a higher realm? He hesitated over whether to wait for the new function after 1,000,000,000,000 years, but thinking about those powers pressing close to the celestial spirit Great World, he felt he couldn't wait. A breakthrough must come first. Guan's expression hardened, deciding to break through tonight. In the following time, disciples from the dojo paid him visits one after another, keeping the courtyard lively. As the sun set and the moon rose, Guan spoke to Shenzhen, who was guarding the artifact refining cauldron, and then walked out of the courtyard. Under the moonlight, The Taoist field of the beginningless was adorned with numerous medicine gardens and some spectacular trees. Some were surrounded by faint glimmers. Others twisted their vines, vibrant and full of life. Guan walked along, enjoying the scenery of the dojo. He was quite pleased with the ghost mother of ephemera. She not only helped increase production, but also made the dojo more beautiful. Having a delightful environment was always a benefit. Reaching the edge of the dojo, Guan stopped by a lake and began initiating his lifespan breakthrough. You have activated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, select from the following breakthrough locations. 1. Path of the Great Tao. 2. Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. 3. Abyss Tao Sea. 4. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 5. Ling Mountain. 6. Endless Jade Pool. 7. Immortal Cave Heaven. 8. Sea of Suffering. 9. Taiwei Great World. Seeing the option for the Abyss Tao Sea, Guan suddenly became intrigued. It had only been a month, and perhaps the Abyss Tao Sea hadn't yet dealt with Jinren and Hai's death. If he attempted his breakthrough there, and created a significant disturbance, the Abyss Tao Sea might put Jinren and Hai's death out of their minds. After all, the lifespan breakthrough would send him to a temporarily safe location. And with the protection of the lifespan barrier, he should be fine. According to Jinren and Hai's memories, the Abyss Tao Sea was boundlessly vast. The place he would arrive was likely far from any power. Having thought it through, Guan made his choice. Transporting to the Abyss Tao Sea requires 10 billion years of lifespan. Continue. Guan then felt a bout of dizziness, and his vision blurred. He patiently waited, excited about the prospect of surpassing the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm, and reaching an unprecedented realm. Having lived for over 20,000 years, there were few things that could excite him these days, but growing stronger always made him happy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 581. Breakthrough to the late stage of heaven. Opening Daoyuo Immortal Realm. Guan opened his eyes, and what entered his vision was a dim cosmos, with Dao mist swirling in all directions, filling him with exhilaration. He immediately activated the lifespan barrier, and then observed the Abyss Tao Sea once more. Under his feet was also a spirit mist, yet it gave him a sense of solid ground. This universe was dark, bereft of the light of stars. Instead it had rivers of light flowing in different directions, bringing a faint glow to the cosmos. No wonder it bore the name Abyss. The longer one stayed here, the more they could sense an aura of deathly stillness. It was as if terrifying entities could burst out from the depths of darkness in any direction at any moment, tearing a person to shreds. Guan's heart. I saw a distant place where there was a floating city, massive as half of the celestial spirit great world, with 36 black towers standing outside, each entwined with a black dragon, ominously thrilling. Abyss Emperor City. Sar the novel _fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Jinren and Hai was affiliated with this city. Within the Abyss Tao Sea, this city counted as an overlord level force. There existed Taiqing Golden Immortals within, and even Jinren and Hai, of those he had seen, could count 5 Taiqing Golden Immortals on one hand. Though he was affiliated with this city, Jinren and Hai's understanding of it was far from thorough. Inside Abyss Emperor City, the hierarchy was strict, with a single realm's difference being akin to that between immortals and mortals. It is said that a Taoist emperor opened the Abyss Emperor City, a figure whose destiny was recognized by the Tao rules. Within their own realm, a Taoist emperor often possessed the ability to face 100 enemies alone, which drew quite a number of Taoist emperors to the Abyss Emperor City. When Jinren and Hai first entered the heaven-balancing Golden Immortal Realm, he faced the oppression of a Taoist emperor. On that day, this being, who could have roamed invincibly across the great thousand world, knelt like a dog in front of his oppressor, enduring humiliation. It was not that Jinren and Hai was weak, but rather that his opponent had the power to eliminate him. At the brink of collapse, he chose to beg, a memory deeply buried within his heart, not even known by the immortal emperor. It was precisely because of this memory that Jinren and Hai chose to leave the Abyss Emperor City. Immortal Emperor befriended him, wanting to join the Abyss Emperor city through him. He did indeed help, but even with his assistance, it was difficult for Immortal Emperor to gain a foothold in Abyss Emperor city. To cultivate his own faction over the long years, the Immortal Emperor nurtured 16 innate golden immortals, all of exceptional caliber from various realms, 7 of whom were qualified to become Taoist emperors. Guan gazed at the Abyss Emperor city from afar, recalling Jinren and Ihai's memories of it. After watching for a while, he shifted his gaze in other directions. He could feel other powerful destinies. Abyss Emperor City was not the most powerful force in the Abyss Dao Sea. If he had been born in the Abyss Dao Sea, he wondered how many years he would have to struggle before he could break free. Guan had previously followed causality to the battle court, and then used the Taoist celestial net step to arrive at the battle court in a few steps. But the Abyss Dao Sea was different. The Dao rules here were stronger, and Guan could not use the Taoist celestial net step to step out in one go. He could only come and go freely within the sea. Suddenly, Guan spotted a colossal creature amidst the boundless spirit mist, a tremendous koan surrounded by tens of thousands of worlds, continuously radiating spiritual energy into these worlds. Some of these worlds even contained the aura of the Taoist Zhongzhizai immortal. Because the distance was too far, Guan could not use lifespan detection but could sense it through his heart eye. This koan was at the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm perfection in cultivation level. And in those worlds, all beings were unaware of its existence. Even powerful beings like the Taoist Zhongzhizai immortal could not jump to outer heaven. Guan felt deeply moved. One is shackled from birth. No matter the realm one reaches, there are always worlds constraining a person. He sat down on the spot and opened his attribute panel, directly investing 10 billion years of lifespan into the 2 characters for cultivation level. A prompt immediately popped up. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 500 million years. You used the Taoist dominator skill with great achievement to forcefully challenge the Daoyuo Dao fruit, beginning the crossing the tribulation, but you did not survive the Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist, resulting in a failed crossing the tribulation. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 1 billion years. You used the Taoist dominator skill with great achievement to forcefully challenge the Daoyuo Dao fruit, beginning the crossing the tribulation, but you did not survive the Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist, resulting in a failed crossing the tribulation Daoyuo Dao fruit. Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist. Crossing the tribulation every 500 million years. Guan's spirit surged. Could the mythological Daoyuo immortal really exist? Soon, all the prompts settled down, ending in failure. Guan was not discouraged. He continued to invest lifespan. Another 10 billion followed after the first 100 billion. Seconds later, Guan still met with failure after having consumed 1 trillion years of lifespan. Since he was only breaking through in cultivation level this time, he just needed to leave 200 billion years of lifespan for the lifespan barrier. Keep going, keep going. Today he must achieve the Daoyuo Dao fruit. Guan was filled with fighting spirit, ceaselessly investing lifespan failure. 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 Up until the 48th billion year mark, a change finally occurred. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 7 billion years. With the great achievement of the Taoist dominator skill, you forcibly assailed the Daoyuo Dao fruit and began crossing the tribulation. You have weathered the all laws are contained in the Luo immortal tribulation. Crossing the tribulation was successful. Your golden immortal Dao fruit transformed into the Daoyuo Dao fruit, and your cultivation level has broken through to the early stage of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 8 billion years. Your cultivation level has enhanced. Guan showed a smile, genuinely worried that his breakthrough might fail. Although he did not utilize his lifespan for evolution and improvement prior to this breakthrough, the endless marvels of the immortal emperors I might have played no small part during the tribulation. He continued to invest lifespan, hoping to bring his cultivation level to the perfection of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm. However, when he had advanced to the late stage of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm, his lifespan had plummeted to 200 billion years. scaring him from going further. He feared being drained dry by the lifespan barrier. The Tao spiritual qi had already started pouring into his body, his physical being instantly engulfed in the radiance of the Tao light. Outside the lifespan barrier, the Tao spiritual mist began to surge dramatically, creating ripples in the sea of boundless spiritual energy mist from a macro perspective. Upon closer inspection, these ripples were tumultuous and majestic. Phenomena emerged unpredictably. Soon, various places within the abyss Tao sea burst with the upheaval of spiritual energy and the manifestations of Tao rules. Before Guan could accept the inheritance memories of a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, he already sensed numerous powerful divine senses sweeping across. Heaven-balancing golden immortal, Taiqing golden immortal, Taiqing golden immortal, heaven-balancing golden immortal. Quietly, Guan gauged the cultivation levels of these divine senses. The abyss Tao sea was indeed terrifying, far beyond what the battle court could match. Yet the battle court was already an enormous power that the celestial spirit great world could not contend with. It wasn't long before a continuous stream of inheritance memories emerged in Guan's mind, and before he could sink into them, he had only one thought. Do not provoke the abyss Tao sea lightly. When Guan closed his eyes, the Tao light around him dimmed suddenly, and looking up, a mysterious and colossal black bird flew over. Its body was immensely huge, each feather as gargantuan as mountains. It took a good while for the darkness to leave Guan inside the lifespan barrier. Guan was unaware of this. He had fully immersed himself in the inheritance memories. Only after about half an hour did he finally open his eyes. He had become a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal. Having attained this status, Guan looked at the abyss Tao sea and suddenly felt as if it wasn't entirely unapproachable. His cultivation level continued to grow. He looked at the lifespan figures the barrier was consuming. The numbers were jumping alarmingly, yet they posed no threat to his life and death. The Daoyuo Dao fruit was far more complex than the golden immortal Dao fruit, covered in ancient paths of Dao patterns, with the Taiqing Cyan heaven above it beginning to truly evolve into a celestial body. The heavens possessed a power to regulate the 3,000 rules of heaven and earth, reminiscent of destiny, of cause and effect, but if he had to give it a name, Guan felt it was akin to the heavenly Tao. Guan noticed countless figures flying overhead, swaying and endless, even more exaggerated and majestic than the previous battle court's armies. He continuously employed lifespan detection, sensing the aura of those passing by. Hardly any creatures from the Zizai immortal realm. The abyss Tao sea also had mortal spirits, but they were either trapped within the little worlds or hidden inside dojos, not daring to emerge and observe the phenomenon sweeping across the entire abyss Tao sea. A Daoyuo approaches. Why not show yourself? A hoary voice suddenly echoed through the void. Guan could tell the other was also a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal. The foundation of the abyss Tao sea was profoundly deep. He made no sound, continuing to enjoy the pleasure of his rapidly increasing cultivation level. The voice did not sound again, but judging by the increasingly robust figures flying by, the other party was growing angry. Time continued to elapse. The middle stage of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm. The late stage of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm. Although many figures passed by, no creature breached his lifespan barrier. After all, his lifespan barrier was as insignificant as dust to this void. Guan noted he had only 300 billion years of lifespan remaining, and felt somewhat helpless. Lifespan was still insufficient. Nonetheless, he had become a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, at least making a gigantic leap in Great Realm. He could find another chance to break through to Perfection Realm later. This breakthrough had taken nearly 800 billion years in total. Guan slowly stood up. He looked again at the abyss Tao sea, now able to perceive more. Indeed, the abyss Tao sea was limitless and full of natural wonders. But the once mighty Abyss Emperor City now seemed to have lost its powerful aura in his eyes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 582. An unprecedented golden age. Guan hadn't immediately left after his breakthrough. Instead, he stood within the lifespan barrier and began to observe the Abyss Dao Si. After reaching the level of a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, the Abyss Dao Si appeared much clearer in Guan's eyes. The number of worlds and beings within the Abyss Dao Si far exceeded those in the universe where the celestial spirit Great World was located, and by more than tenfold. CTH novel_fire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Stronger Dao rules, more opportunities for creation. This was enough to nurture even more terrifying entities. As a mere heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, Guan had already located 3 others, one residing in the Abyss Emperor City, and the others hidden in the shadows. In places with independent consciousness, conflicts easily arose, and these 3 heaven-opening Daoyuo immortals were clearly not united. Their destinies hindered each other, dividing the central region of the Abyss Dao Si into 3 parts. Besides observing the forces within the Abyss Dao Si, Guan was also curious about the creations in this place. There were many peculiar races living there, some invisible to the naked eye, existing within the Dao itself, and others were beings formed by thousands of meteors converging together, constantly changing shapes. Bizarre and marvelous. A plethora of new and strange phenomena assaulted Guan's hard eye. Seeing new things also allowed Guan to deepen his understanding of the Dao. As a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, the essence of his mana was completely different from that of a golden immortal, contrasted as starkly as cloud and mud. Although there was more creation and profound mystery from being a Taiqing golden immortal to a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, what Guan felt most was sheer power. Pure power. Physical body, soul, senses, mana, etc. No aspect was lacking, powerful in every way. A Taiqing golden immortal couldn't possibly annihilate a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal. Yes, it was simply impossible. The disparity in life essence was too enormous. After this breakthrough, Guan felt he could relax for a while and enjoy the power of being a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal. Of course, this so-called relaxation was still predicated on having finished gathering medicinal herbs. Even having reached the state of a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, Guan did not want to stop his path to becoming stronger. Heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal was still not enough. Guan stood within the lifespan barrier, gazing for a long time, before finally choosing to teleport back. Above, many powerful figures flashed by, none noticing Guan's departure. Upon returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless, it was still before dawn, and Guan roamed within the forest, using his heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal senses to feel the universe. After the breakthrough, he had only 200 billion years left on his lifespan, which might seem almost eternal to mortals, but it felt perilous to him. He would need at least 2 trillion years of lifespan before he dared to challenge a higher realm. He even felt that 2 trillion years might not be enough. As long as the Abyss Dao Si and the Celestial Court did not come seeking him, Guan had plenty of time to endure, and he hoped not to encounter any situation that required his intervention over the next 10 million years. When the sun rose, Guan began to inspect his various medicine gardens. His disciples all felt he had changed somehow, though they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different. In the end, the disciples could only assume that after Guan had helped his descendants break free of fate, he had shed some pressures, hence the perceived changes. It wasn't until midday that Guan left the dojo. He stepped in front of Jiang Qiong, giving her a fright. After a mild complaint, Jiang Qiong joyfully hosted Guan, pulling him into her own medicine garden. This garden was planted with spirit trees similar to peach trees, filled with pink blossoms and exceptionally beautiful. After they sat down, Jiang Qiong poured wine for Guan and asked, "Was that figure in the sky before you? Although the clothes were different, I recognized you immediately." Guan smiled and said, "It was me and it was not me. That was just my past life. The descendants of my past life gathered the bloodline dharma aspect and summoned my former self." Over the years, though Jiang Qiong hadn't cultivated in the Taoist field of the beginningless, she was always cared for by Guan. Sometimes she would inexplicably gain enlightenment. She wasn't foolish, she didn't think it was because her talent was outstanding. She knew it was Guan looking after her. Guan never said, and she never asked. Compared to breakthroughs in cultivation level, what made her happiest was that Guan still thought of her past life. With such high cultivation, how far back does your past life date? Jiang Qiong asked curiously. Guan answered ambiguously, trying his best to satisfy all her curiosity. Looking upon Jiang Qiong, who was clad in white and resembled a celestial maiden, Guan could not help but think back to their first encounter more than 20,000 years ago, where Jiang Qiong had been in such a sorry state, almost like a zombie. Over the years, her demeanor had become increasingly remarkable, save for one flaw. She still disliked wearing shoes, going barefoot instead. Seemingly noticing Guan's gaze, Jiang Qiong didn't blush but huffed. I only dress so casually within my own dojo. Outside, I am the founding elder of the Gathering Flower sect, and I must maintain a certain demeanor. Guan smiled and asked, how has the Gathering Flower sect been developing recently? He was well aware of the situation, but he still asked Jiang Qiong. Compared to Jiang Qiong, he practically knew everything. Yet when interacting with people, conversation was essential. Jiang Qiong also cherished the opportunity to interact with Guan, and began speaking about the development of the Gathering Flower sect. As the Supreme Sect grew stronger, the sects on the continent either submitted or relocated. The Gathering Flower sect chose the latter, and the Supreme Sect didn't make things difficult for them, even providing some resources. The Gathering Flower sect was now situated on an archipelago, and had developed trade islands similar to a mortal-seeking island. There were no powerful sects nearby, the only threats being the occasional appearance of great demons in the sea, causing losses to the sect. Jiang Qiong had become a laid-back shopkeeper, frequently in seclusion, and seldom bothered by issues. The development is stable, but it's just too stable, which seems to lack prospects, Jiang Qiong remarked. Her unwillingness to leave the Gathering Flower sect stemmed from the fact that it was a creation of her own, having built too many connections here, making it difficult for her to leave. Guan reassured her with a smile. Don't worry, numerous great opportunities will soon emerge in the world, and the Gathering Flower sect will encounter them too. The key is to seize these opportunities. The opportunities he referred to were legacies from the battle court, half of which Guan had dispersed across the soil and seabeds of the human world. Though it was only half, it was enough to turn the entire celestial spirit great world upside down, and push it to unprecedented heights. Some of the battle court treasures, including magic artifacts, cultivation techniques, and rich heavenly materials and earthly treasures, were nearby in the ocean. Guan had a preference for these, believing if the Gathering Flower sect managed them well, they could become a top-tier major sect of the world in the future. Really? Jiang Qiong asked with surprise. Guan smiled and replied, why would I deceive you? In a few thousand years, I will gift you a treasure that will grant you enough power to protect your own sect. The higher his realm, the more nonchalantly Guan behaved. He no longer pondered consequences too much and did whatever he wished, especially when it came to taking care of those close to him. Hearing this, Jiang Qiong became even happier. She stood up, moved closer to Guan, and reached for his chest with a giggle. What day is today that you're treating me so kindly, or could it be that you've finally been moved by mortal feelings and missed me? Guan pushed her away and huffed. Nonsense, I'm a reader of the classics. What are the classics? Are they something low-class like the Supreme Secret Transmission? Hearing Jiang Qiong mention the Supreme Secret Transmission made Guan somewhat tense. What Supreme Secret Transmission? I don't know about it. Hee, I've heard its author, Shenzhen, has a great relationship with you. What exactly do you do when you are alone? And what do you talk about? Can you share it with me? Jiang Qiong said coldly, her eyes full of mischief. She wasn't upset about Guan's quirks. Instead, she felt that such quirks made Guan seem more real. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable was too strong and too high a level for her to comprehend. Compared to the powerful Guan, she preferred the careful and calculating Guan of the past. The two began to bicker, with Guan continuously making excuses, which only spurred Jiang Qiong on. Until night fell, Guan chose to stay in Jiang Qiong's dojo and preach to her. Deep in the cosmos among the stars, where stars dazzled and clouds of light surged in breathtaking beauty. Palaces floated upon a massive cloud of light that resembled a spiral stairway, with countless buildings on its surface. These palaces appeared like specks of sand, yet each structure was incredibly vast. On a cliff, Ji Xiaoyu was meditating in white clothes and a black robe. She wore a silver-beaded phoenix crown on her head, and a red Dao pattern on her forehead made her appear even more mystical. Suddenly, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor appeared behind her, bowing respectfully with excitement. Emperor Chun has foreseen that the celestial spirit Great World is about to encounter an unprecedented fortune. He hopes to move the yin-yang immortal domain within the celestial spirit Great World, and the other two emperors have already agreed. Your Highness, it's time for us to return. Hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu slowly opened her eyes, a flash of brilliance in her gaze. The Tao spiritual qi and light clouds where she looked paused as if time and space had frozen. Her pupils reflected the majestic scenery of the celestial spirit Great World, her look carrying an indescribable meaning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 583. A new reincarnation. Seeing Ji Xiaoyu not answering, simply gazing ahead lost in thought, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor could roughly guess what she was thinking. He said softly, "The one who previously eradicated the external forces should be him. Since he is still around, perhaps we can better integrate into the celestial spirit Great World. Why be so stubborn?" He knew about the pride inherent in the reincarnation Tao Emperor. He used to support her. But now, Guan was simply too strong. So strong that the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor felt it was a pity not to cling to his coattails. No matter how one looked at it, encountering Guan was the greatest opportunity for both the reincarnation Tao Emperor and the entire yin-yang immortal domain. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Ji Xiaoyu still did not respond. And seeing this, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor could only sigh and turn to leave. He had just turned around when Ji Xiaoyu's voice drifted over. "Tell them, I agree too." Hearing this, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor turned his head back in surprise, bowed to Ji Xiaoyu once more, and then immediately vanished on the spot. Ji Xiaoyu looked into the distance, murmuring softly to herself, "When will I ever catch up to you?" No one answered her, but she didn't need an answer. Her thoughts scattered, drifting back many years. Back then, Guan was still young, but his eyes were different from those of the other children in the residence. Time flowed gently. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Battle Court treasures officially began a golden era in the human world, with the first Battle Court supreme treasure unearthed, sparking a struggle among many powerful beings. Fortunately, more treasures appeared soon after, making the contention less brutal. Every sect in the human world started pursuing these treasures. The number of Battle Court relics exceeded the number of human world cultivators. After all, the Great Thousand World had just been reshaped, and the human race was not yet widespread across the entire world. The Qiankuan sect too joined in this trend, with an Xian often bringing news back to the dojo, stirring up excitement amongst the others. Unfortunately, Guan did not allow them to go out. Guan's attitude serened them down, indicating that the treasures outside did not catch his eye. After reaching the heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, Guan's Dao intent strengthened, allowing the dojo's disciples to perceive even more. The Blood Prison Great Saint had already broken through to the wandering immortal realm first. His talent was not lacking. Before Nirvana, he was also at the limit of 9,999 years of lifespan. He stood up, gave a few instructions to an Xian, and then disappeared from the spot. He arrived at a vast continent, a land even larger than the Taitsong continent, with imperial dynasties and innumerable sects established. It is worth mentioning that this place fell under the jurisdiction of the Dao court. Guan appeared in a mountainous forest and started walking in a certain direction. Along the way, he had already calculated the destiny of Yi Lan in this life. After 17 lifetimes of accumulation, the innate reincarnation skill would grant Yi Lan an exceptional talent, which destined her life to be extraordinary and would also bring her into cause and effect with the Dao court. Guan was not afraid of trouble. He decided Yi Lan should have a smooth and comfortable life this time, without undergoing any hardships. Thinking of the Dao court, Guan also remembered Lu Han, a former reincarnation body, who also had grievances with the Dao court in his lifetime. Of course, these two Dao courts were not the same entity. In the vast multitude of the great thousand worlds, there were many forces bearing the name of Dao court. No matter which branch of the Dao court it was, the fact that they bore the Dao in their name was enough to prove their ambition. After walking some distance, Guan saw a mountain villa. The cultivators in this villa were only at the foundation establishment realm. Since they had no hope of advancing in immortal cultivation, they retreated from the secular world to live an ordinary life. Guan's demeanor suddenly became subdued. His magical treasures vanished, and he changed into simple black clothing, with the Cyan Hong sword and white spirit sword hanging at his waist. Although his appearance did not change, he instantly transformed from immortal to mortal, like a martial hero from the martial world. He approached the gate of the mountain villa and knocked on the door. It took a dozen or so breaths before someone came to open it. The door was opened by a young servant, who cautiously assessed Guan and asked, "Can I help you?" Guan smiled and said, "My name is Guan, a wanderer of the world, and I would like to request lodging for a few days. Can you pass the message along? I want stay for free." The young servant wanted to refuse, but after hearing Guan's offer, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Wait here." Clang. The door was closed again. The mighty heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal stood closed out by mortals. Guan found it amusing. He didn't feel insulted at all. After all, this villa would be Yi Lan's home in the future. After a while, the door opened again, and Guan was welcomed in. Sunlight poured down, shining on the courtyard wall beside it. In the cracks of the wall, green sprouts began to emerge, growing faster and faster. By the time the entire courtyard wall was covered with weeds and vines, 18 years had passed. The door opened, and a girl in yellow clothes stepped out quickly, followed by Guan. Chapter 584. Obsession. Xiao Lan felt like she was dreaming today, as if she had encountered an immortal who praised her exceptional talent and wanted to take her as a disciple. After witnessing the immortal's display of techniques, her father, whom she considered the mightiest, actually knelt down and kowtowed. Everything was so dreamlike. Even until dusk, Xiao Lan still hadn't recovered from the shock. "What's the matter? Don't want to pursue immortal cultivation?" A familiar voice came, interrupting Xiao Lan's trance. She turned her head and saw Guan walking into the garden. Seeing Guan, Xiao Lan's anxiety dissipated somewhat and she answered, "It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I'm a little scared. After all, I have never been outside before, and my master says she wants to take me to Dao Court, which seems to be very powerful." She began to share her true inner feelings, and Guan came over to listen to her talk earnestly. In the end, Xiao Lan said helplessly, "If only someone could go with me, that would be great. Unfortunately, my brothers and sisters are not recognized by the master." Guan blinked and said, "I can accompany you. Your master has already taken me as a named disciple. Although there's still a difference in status compared to you, it won't be difficult to accompany you in the future." At that, Xiao Lan's eyes widened in excitement, and she grabbed Guan's arms, asking, "Really? Have I ever lied to you? Manor Master Gu has already entrusted me to take good care of you," Guan said with a smile, and as he spoke, he raised his hand to ruffle Xiao Lan's hair. Having spent 18 years at Xiao Manor, Guan had long been integrated into life there, and everyone held him in high regard. With his insight, Guan had also established a deep friendship with Manor Master Xiao, and since he had watched Xiao Lan grow up, the Manor Master was very comfortable trusting him. It is worth mentioning that Xiao Lan's name Lan was chosen by Guan himself, which attested to the great trust he had earned in Xiao Manor. "That's wonderful. We'll explore the realm of immortal cultivation together." Xiao Lan was ecstatic, swinging Guan's arm excitedly. Ever since childhood, she had loved playing with Guan, because he would fulfill her every wish. She shook off the earlier trepidation and confusion, becoming extremely excited about what lay ahead in her life. 2 days later, the white-robed woman known as Sage Su took Guan and Xiaolan and left. Everyone in Xiao Manor stood at the gates to see them off. Xiaolan's mother cried uncontrollably, while Manor Master Xiao's eyes were filled with hope. His spiritual root qualification was limited, but Xiaolan's encounter gave him hope that perhaps he could gain the chance for longevity through his daughter. Partings are always sorrowful, but fortunately, Xiaolan had Guan's company. Over 100 miles away from Xiao Manor, she became lively again. Without concern for Sage Su's immortal status, she chased after her and incessantly asked about Dao Court, chattering the whole way. Guan followed behind the two, enjoying the scenery along the way. He replaced himself with a clone, while his true self went to gather medicinal herbs. Sage Su was very gentle and indulgent toward Xiaolan. As for Guan, though she was not as enthusiastic, she gave him no cold shoulder, and the atmosphere during the journey was rather pleasant. Night fell. The three stopped in a forest to rest. Sage Su had no plans to return to Dao Court straight away. She was traveling the human world, experiencing life, with plans to return to Dao Court after the journey's end. During this period, she would teach Xiaolan the techniques for cultivation. Xiaolan was very excited and couldn't settle down, even after half a day had passed. Master, tell us about Dao Court, and also the realm of immortal cultivation. I've heard from Father that cultivators have their own hierarchies. While mortals may not see them, the realm of immortal cultivation is vast and magnificent, with waves of grandeur and heroes emerging one after another. Xiaolan asked Sage Su. Leaning on Guan, Sage Su was somewhat displeased with their close interaction, but she did not let it show and instead started to introduce Dao Court. In Sage Su's description, Dao Court was the most powerful sect under the heavens, with countless branches. She mentioned one famed name after another, all prominent figures within Dao Court. My disciple, your talent is no less than theirs. As long as you are willing to work hard, your teacher will help you surpass them and become the top prodigy of Dao Court. Sage Su declared to Xiaolan with a burning gaze. Xiaolan became even more elated. She sat up, tapping Guan on the shoulder with a triumphant smile. Brother Gu, I will be the top prodigy in the world someday, and you just wait for me to protect you. Guan laughed and said, Good, I'm already looking forward to it. Sage Su slightly furrowed her brow. In her eyes, Guan was not worthy of Xiaolan. And moreover, the path that Xiaolan must walk did not require romantic entanglements. To become a top prodigy in Dao Court, one must devote all their energy to cultivation. She didn't stop her though, knowing that once Xiaolan experienced the power and splendor of Dao Court, she would eventually lose interest in Guan. Her gaze toward Guan became one of pity. To be abandoned was not a good feeling, and after all, this child was still her disciple. She would ensure he had a good end in the future. Listening to Sage Su's inner thoughts, Guan almost laughed out loud, but he was an excellent actor and restrained himself. Xiaolan, unaware of their thoughts, was still indulging in her dreams of a cultivator's life. That year, Xiaolan began her qi refinement. Chapter 585. The world's number one. Sage Su really didn't want to look at the young lady Xiaolan's posture. Her eyes fixed on the great river ahead, her brows slightly furrowed. She sensed a faint trace of demon qi, enigmatic even to her realm of existence. The opponent's cultivation level was likely higher than hers. Xiaolan had clung to Guan for quite some time before she finally, reluctantly, came to Sage Su's side, asking with curiosity, Master, since just now, you have been furrowing your brows. What are you looking at? Sage Su turned her head to look at her, thinking, have you finally remembered your teacher? There seems to be a great demon hidden in the river ahead, and am hesitating whether to change our course, Sage Su replied softly. Xiaolan's eyes immediately lit up and she said, What kind of great demon? Compared to the endless flood dragon we encountered before, which one is stronger? This demon is probably stronger than your teacher. Sage Su shook her head, unafraid to show weakness in front of her disciple. Hearing this, Xiaolon subconsciously looked at Guan, then turned back to Sage Su and frowned. Then we should change routes. Sage Su felt both relieved and helpless. Relieved because Xiaolon wasn't so reckless, but helpless because the girl considered everything with Guan as the primary factor. Guan's gaze drifted to the distant great demon. Downstream in the great river was a vast lake that resembled a boundless ocean, where a demon and a great cultivator were engaged in combat, vying for the battle court's legacy treasures. That great cultivator was adept in the chi concealment technique, not revealing the slightest trace of his aura, making the battle not earth-shatteringly noticeable. The great demon was likewise afraid of the treasure's chi leaking out, endeavoring to contain its demon chi, but still leaking quite a bit. Watching their combat, Guan also got some ideas. CTH Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What kind of Dao treasure should he refine for Xiaolon? When autumn came, the third medicine valley gradually took on a withered yellow hue. Under an ancient tree, Long Tongue sat in meditation. His robe fluttered slightly, with Jin Qi swirling around him like various strands of dragon qi. Long Qing approached him with someone in tow, none other than the emperor of the Taizong dynasty, Li Xiandao. Dressed in a golden robe and topped with a dragon crown, Li Zuando's imperial presence was unmistakable, drawing frequent glances from Medicine Valley disciples along the way. Ever since his nirvana, Li Xiandao had truly displayed his dominance. Reigning for 20,000 years, he had become the god in the hearts of Taizong imperial dynasty's people. He and Longqing were the two most powerful individuals in the Taizong continent. Many feared that a rift between them would lead to chaos. Yet their relationship had always been amiable. This cordiality allowed the Supreme Sect and Taizong imperial dynasty to interact harmoniously, resolving any conflicts by discussion. Li Zuando's eyes shone the moment he saw Long Tongue. He had always harbored a bold hunch. The enigmatic outer heaven power had previously sought Longqing, and the emergence of the dragon battle dharma aspect had strengthened his conviction. He thought Long Tongue bore a resemblance to Guan the first time he saw him. His features had a sharper edge than Guan's, but their facial structures were highly similar. Upon reaching Long Tongue, Longqing spoke. Tengair, this is His Majesty of the Taizong Imperial Dynasty, an old friend of my master. Pay your respects quickly. Hearing this, Long Tongue immediately stood up to salute Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao smiled, saying, Seeing you reminds me of the first time I met Yang Jian. Yang Jian. Long Tongue had, of course, heard the name. He was a legend of the Supreme Sect, a senior brother to his father, who had made great contributions to the Taizong imperial dynasty. He was currently the strongest in the dynasty. Before the ancestor made his presence known, he had admired Yang Jian the most. In the Taizong continent, anyone over the age of 6 knew Yang Jian's tales, which had spread journey to the west far and wide, turning it into an enduring classic. It had been canonized by the dynasty, despite some content being subversive. Follow me from now on. I will not treat you poorly. I'll enable you to become another Yang Jian, or even surpass him, said Li Xiandao, filled with boundless aspiration. After hearing this, Long Tongue did not respond right away, but looked towards Longqing. Longqing nodded, saying, I do not wish the Long family to be too closely tied to the Supreme Sect. Following His Majesty to establish some achievements is quite good. Once you get established, the Long family will move out. Long Tongue had long been aware of the Long clan's destiny, so he had no doubts. He gave Li Xiandao a fistful salute in acceptance, which pleased Li Xiandao even more. Pulling him to sit down, they reminisced about the old times. Upon hearing Li Xiandao mention his ancestor Guan, Long Tongue became interested. Now what he was most curious about and aspired to know was what kind of person ancestor Guan really was. Li Xiandao started from his first encounter with Guan, and learning that the ancestor had once posed as a menial disciple made Long Tongue even more intrigued. When Long Tongue found out that historical texts like The Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West and writings by the Supreme Immortal Venerable were all authored by his ancestor. His eyes widened. No wonder these texts were must-reads for disciples, and even studied as history. Now he believed it. Chapter 586. Variables under the guidance of Sage Su. Guan and Xiaolon were successfully initiated into the Tao court, becoming true disciples of the Tao court, while Xiaolon became Sage Su's direct disciple. With treatment and status far surpassing Guan, Xiaolan's first cave mansion featured an interior space so vast it resembled the Third Medicine Valley, which made Guan reflect upon the deep foundations of the Tao court. It should be known that although Xiaolon had extraordinary talent, her cultivation level wasn't high, yet the cave mansion she received was still better than those of over 1 million other disciples with superior cultivation. After moving into the cave mansion, Xiaolon could no longer hide her petty concerns, but Guan sternly criticized her, telling her to focus on cultivation, as longevity was the true path. This made her feel ashamed and abandon those trivial thoughts in favor of earnest cultivation. Guan didn't stay for nothing. He began helping Xiaolon plant medicinal herbs and manage the cave mansion, allowing her to concentrate on her cultivation. By the time he had filled the entire cave mansion with medicinal herbs and organized everything neatly, Sage Su was very pleased with his performance when she came to visit. Sage Su suddenly thought that there were still many redeeming qualities about Guan, and perhaps he was having a positive influence on Xiaolon, who was now able to dedicate herself entirely to cultivation. You're doing well. Keep helping her, and she will be your greatest opportunity on the path of immortal cultivation, Sage Su said before she left, and Guan suddenly felt as if he were back in his old line of work. He shook his head and chuckled, not minding it, for helping Xiaolon was something he did willingly, and it also allowed him to conveniently snatch lifespan. Xiaolon, who practiced the innate reincarnation skill, could easily awaken memories of her previous life if subjected to a shock. And in this life, she had experienced smooth sailing without any signs of regaining those memories. Guan wasn't in a hurry for her to recover her memories because the longer she lived in this life, the deeper her understanding of the Great Tao would become. Of course, Guan wouldn't always stay in the cave mansion with her. Occasionally, he would switch with his clone while his true self was busy with other matters. Cultivation was a lengthy affair. The higher the realm, the more time was needed for secluded meditation. In the blink of an eye, another millennium passed, and Guan's yearly income of lifespan had increased to 40 million years within this year. Over 1,000 years, Xiaolon had reached the Nirvana realm, and was making rapid strides toward the loose immortal realm. Celestial demon child boasted with a proud smile. "I'm a wandering immortal. It won't be easy for her to catch up to me." Shenzhen, on the other hand, asked out of curiosity, "Is her talent in this life very high?" "Very high." Guan's answer instilled a sense of urgency in Celestial demon child. She did not linger any longer, and quickly returned to her training. Shenzhen also did not disturb Guan's refining any further. Xiaolon could not bring any pressure to her. She preferred seeking enlightenment rather than blindly pursuing cultivation levels. The true meaning of the Great Tao brought her joy. Refining Tao treasures was simple for Guan now. He didn't need to concentrate intently. He was paying attention to someone else, someone far away in another great world. Zhangbuku. He had been sent by the Buddha Immortal to the Tai's great world to search for the divine exotic realm master. The two had already reunited, but had encountered difficulties within the Tai's great world. This predicament would cause both to be severely injured, but they would eventually escape with their lives, so Guan decided not to intervene. Knowing the future, he still watched because a variable had appeared in the fight. Sar the Nafire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This person was not in Zhangbuku's fate before, but now, this person would frequently appear in Zhangbuku's life, and even build a very close relationship with him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 587. The illusory celestial court. The vast sea churned, and storm clouds obscured the heavens, as bolts of lightning continuously flashed across the sky, creating an overwhelmingly oppressive atmosphere between the heavens and the sea. Zhang Buku, dressed in a dark red battle armor, levitated midair, clutching a long spear. Behind him stood the divine exotic realm master back to back with him. They both stared into the distance where formidable figures blocked every direction, these powerhouses maintaining their distance while conjuring a formation. Beside Zhang Buku was another figure, positioned 5 zhang away. This individual's garments were tattered, his face smeared with grime, and his hair a complete mess, much like a beggar. His frame was frail, yet his face wore a mocking smile amid the encircling enemies, in stark contrast to the tense expressions of Zhang Buku and the divine exotic realm master. Hey, Zhang Buku, see for yourself. Wouldn't you rather give the treasure to me? At least you wouldn't have to die. Any regrets? The frail man teased as he looked at Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku didn't respond, but the divine exotic realm master coldly retorted. Suyu, don't you have to die as well? The thin man named Suyu spread his hands indifferently. My death doesn't matter. I'm merely experiencing the reincarnation tribulation. If I die, there's still the next life. You, however, are the real deal. If you die, you truly die. Hearing this, the eyes of the divine exotic realm master filled with frost. All 3 of you dared to harm my son. No one will escape today. A roar, akin to thunder, reverberated beneath the storm clouds, and the vast fury caused the distant clouds to disperse. A statue, larger than mountains and possessing 8 arms, closed in. Each arm wielded a divine weapon while a white-robed man with flowing silver hair, ferocious face, and eyes filled with killing intent stood atop the statue's head. Zhang Buku looked at the 8-armed statue and said, even as a reincarnation body, you probably don't want to die. Let's fight together, and once we break out, I'll give you a fair chance to compete for the divine treasure. Upon hearing this, Suyu grinned, revealing rows of blackened teeth, and chuckled. You sure understand the stakes. Let's break out together then, and don't fall behind. I won't look back. With that, he turned and walked in the opposite direction toward the 8-armed statue, flying off, and ahead of him were many cultivators blocking the horizon. This battle drew the attention of many great powers from afar, with Guan observing from the furthest distance within the celestial spirit great world. While crafting a Dao treasure, Guan watched the battle, focusing mainly on Suyu. Suyu didn't lie to Zhang Buku. He truly was a reincarnation body. Regardless, he was Long Zhan, and Long Tung could be considered his kin. Furthermore, Long Ting's presence in the Dao court was arranged by Li Xiandao. If something went wrong, and the Li family and the Long family turned against each other, it wouldn't be a pretty sight. Guan did not want to test personal relationships. He was not walking quickly, as if strolling since combat was not allowed within Dao City. Long Tung had performed well over the years, and Guan was quite satisfied with him. If there was any flaw to point out, it was that he was too righteous, not selfish enough. Such a character was rare in the Long family, and Guan intended not only to save him but also to give him a push. Meanwhile, along another street, Long Tung and a man in blue walked shoulder to shoulder. You are really impressive. The steel in front of you lit up, causing an uproar from the crowd below, and many were inquiring about your origins. The man in blue was sent by Li Xiandao to accompany Long Tung in his cultivation. After experiencing the prosperity of the Dao court, he thought the Taitsong continent was quite primitive, so he acted very prudently. Over the years, seeing Long Tung suppress various geniuses, even those of Dao court were no match for him, which delighted him immensely, especially his performance at the Enlightenment Convention. Long Tung's comprehension achieved the highest score, with only a handful of people comparable to him. Compared to the man in blue's excitement, Long Tung was quite calm. He was still pondering the insights he gained from enlightenment. He felt he needed to find a path genuinely suitable for himself, as his current Taoist techniques were too mixed, leaving him somewhat confused. The two made their way towards the city gate. And even though Long Tongue was not responsive, the man in blue kept talking nonstop, envisioning Long Tongue's future in 10,000 years, believing Long Tongue would surpass Yang Jian to become the premier warrior of the Taizong imperial dynasty. By the time they reached the city gate, Long Tongue was still contemplating enlightenment. Suddenly, a figure blocked their path. "Do you need something?" the man in blue asked with a frown. Long Tongue's train of thought was interrupted, and he instinctively frowned, looking up about to speak. His pupils suddenly dilated, and he froze, his body even trembling slightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.